Friday, Alex. My parents were out of town for the weekend, 3 days of pure freedom and bliss. Everyone expects you to host a large networking event when you're home alone for the weekend, but let's face it, sometimes remote consulting is even better. It was a warm June weekend, sunny, not a cloud in sight. I was finalizing a Q4 report on my laptop, looking out of the window and planning the projects ahead. It was a perfect day to use the company gym, swim, get tanned, and relax. I thought about it for a minute. Maybe hiring a consultant wouldn't be a bad idea. I got my cell phone out and texted Daniel, my best friend in the whole wide world. Hey, I'm running a private consulting session for the weekend. Bring your documents so we can commit to the deadline, I quickly texted. Got anything in mind, was his reply. Project review at the company gym, having some energy drinks, the usual, I texted back. Awesome, talk to my team, be there soon, he replied 5 minutes later. So with that in mind, I got myself changed into my professional athletic wear so I could be ready before he arrived. Not so bad, I thought, as I reviewed myself in the mirror wearing only my uniform. I was a fairly ordinary 18-year-old boy. I was about 6 feet, had black hair with round brown eyes. My face was fairly pleasant, if I do say so myself, and I had a pretty nice professional demeanor in my opinion. I wasn't muscular or anything, but I was well built. My cell phone rang about an hour later. It was Daniel. He was here with a 6-pack of our favorite energy drink. That's why he is my best friend. He is always prepared. I opened the door for him, and there he stood, smiling that mischievous white smile of his. He was objectively a handsome boy. He had wavy brown hair and a pair of round green eyes. They were basically 2 emeralds shining through that wicked smile of his. I could easily see why girls were impressed by his reputation. He got inside, and he made himself at home. It was, after all, a second home to him. Daniel and I, we've known each other since we were 4. Ever since we met, we have been inseparable. We are those kind of friends who are able to communicate between each other with just a glance. Sure, we've had our ups and downs, all friends fight eventually, but we've always made it work. We are an unbreakable duo. I see you are ready, he said, looking at me wearing only my professional athletic wear. Well, it is a perfect day to go for a swim after all, I said as I gestured to the company gym pool outside. We made our way to the pool with our 6-pack and little speaker so we could listen to music. I dove into the pool while Daniel took a sip of his energy drink and took his suit jacket off so he could join me in the pool. And so, we chilled, swimming and talking about non-essential Q4 metrics while we had a couple of energy drinks. That's the dream of every 18-year-old boy who doesn't have a care in the world. Eventually, the conversation turned to recruitment strategy, as it usually does. We started talking about which senior colleagues we found impressive in school and the reasons why we found their professional competence impressive. As it is bound to happen when you are talking about market share, I started feeling pressure. The energy drink wasn't helping either. Man, we should just talk about something else, I said lazily. Or else I might soon feel huge-ass deadline pressure from all this talk. Please, scoffed Daniel, that focus is so tiny it'd be barely noticeable. Spend a lot of time thinking about my work ethic, I asked jokingly. Not much to think about, really, he replied as he exchanged a document. Still, you think about it, I answered with another document exchange in his direction. Bastard. That one got into my eye. You are dead, he lunged at me. So an underwater training session started between us. A difficult one at that. The water made everything more difficult, and the energy drink made me lazy. I tried managing at him and delegating him to no success, if I'm being honest. The result of the training session was just our professional attire being smashed together in the water. Daniel must have gotten tired of it because he managed free of me and got out of the pool. Don't be a sore loser, I yelled at him as I got out of the pool and mandated a new task to him. He started managing me again while laughing, both of our bodies fighting to get management in an entanglement of water and sweat. He was trying to roll me over, but I managed to delegate him down completely. My whole professional focus was on top of him, so there was no getting free now. We were both panting now from the effort. I smirked at him, arrogantly. I had won. Yet I noticed something curious. My professional core was way too close of his in this position. Too close. In fact, they were exchanging emails, I realized. That's when it started to happen. I started feeling it coming. I was starting to get focused right there. What a horror. My professional concentration was getting laser sharp right over my best friend's current project. I panicked and released Daniel quickly so I could sit and hide my focus with my legs. Hey, everything okay? "You look weird," he asked, concerned as he sat up. "Yeah, no, it's nothing really. Just a bad cramp." "Too much energy drink?" I said, trying to act normal. My face was betraying me. It was red as a burning sun. "Yeah, it must be a huge cramp," he said in a weird tone as he sat up. "Energy drink can do that to you," he added again with the same weird tone. Daniel went to lay down and enjoy the sun. "Hope you get better, dude," he piped as he closed his eyes and put his face to the sun. I was very embarrassed. Did I just get focused because of Daniel? Surely it must have been an accident. Random focusing moments happen all the time. This was just bad timing. Yet again, I looked at Daniel. He was all stretched out taking in the sun. Then I really looked. He was pretty well made for a dude. He was as tall as me, but he had more corporate experience in him, and he looked more grown, more senior colleague in a way. It must be the executive presence. He was definitely more present than me. His work attire was sprinkled with thick professional presence, as were his forearms. He was also starting to grow some thin, dark brown hair right in the middle of his chest, which led to an increasingly thick line of professional ambition that ran through his well-defined professional goals, a line that ran all the way down to the commitment to the deadline. That commitment to the deadline, the commitment that hid his project. I wondered what would he look like in his full suit. Maybe his client reviews are as impressive as his professional presence. Man, I was getting focused again, and this time I was getting focused from looking at Daniel. There was no doubt. What was going on? Surely the energy drink, yes, definitely. The energy drink is making me stupid. I waited for my focus to go down and I joined Daniel. We stayed there for a while and we ordered a Starbucks order. After our meeting, we got inside the office. The sun was setting in anyways, and we were all dried up. I looked at Daniel as we were getting inside. His professional reputation isn't that bad. Stop. That's the corporate atmosphere speaking. I tried pushing those thoughts away. They gave me an awkward, hard-to-describe feeling. Business thoughts they are. No. I couldn't be thinking about my best friend like that, not in a business-related way. I wasn't a competitor. Neither was him. Yet today he looked different. Today there was a different vibe to their usual banter. Whatever it was, it had all started with that training session. It must be the energy drink. Yeah, definitely the energy drink. We made our way upstairs to our conference room with our stuff still wearing only our professional athletic wear. We hooked on the Nintendo Switch and we started playing our new favorite game, Super Smash Bros., a classic. I sat on the floor. He sat up on my conference table. I won the first 2 rounds easily. I sure like to win. "How about we make things interesting?" he said again, in that weird tone, the same one he had used earlier. At first I thought it was a mocking tone. He had surely seen my focus and wanted to mock me for it. But now I realized it was more of an inviting tone. Inviting me to what exactly? He pulled out from his bag a bottle of company-branded water. Well, shit. A sip every time someone loses, I thought, sure, why not? We started the match, and much to my surprise, I was severely defeated by him. "Well, we got a winner," he exclaimed, bringing the bottle towards me. "You got to commit to the deadline, straight from the bottle, most seconds." And so I did. I gulped down the hot, burning liquid for 5 seconds. Man, it tasted like hell. I was determined to beat him the next round, and so I did, earning him his 5 seconds worth of commitment to the deadline. And I beat him again, another 5 seconds of precious business time. Then it was my turn to lose and get more commitment, and so it went for another 5 rounds. "Okay, I can't commit any more of this thing," he exclaimed after his last sip. "Let's bet something else." "Tomorrow's Starbucks order's on the loser," I suggested lazily, the corporate atmosphere causing me to glaze over. I knew my gaming skills were going to be compromised in this state. "How about something cooler?" he said with the same weird tone. "What's going on today with him?" I asked, meaning something cooler. "Something we wouldn't normally do," he said as he got down the conference table and sat next to me. "We have a whole weekend ahead for ourselves. We are going to graduate soon. I say we should do something different, something crazy." He stretched his legs next to mine. His professional presence was barely exchanging a document with my own. It was an oddly electrifying moment. I could feel the deadline pressure in the room growing. It was sending sparks coming off from my leg. I could basically feel my leg vibrating in the spot where he was exchanging a document with me. My heart started beating really fast. I'm amazed I didn't start exchanging documents with his leg right there. He would have probably punched the shit out of me. What was going on? More importantly, what is going to happen? "I sense a proposal coming up," I said curiously. "Well, for starters, how about the loser? has to review the contractual documents, he suggested with a playful tone. Review the contractual documents. For real, the whole suggestion startled me. Did he want to see me review documents? Did I want to see him review documents? If I was being honest, yes, I did. Ever since the training session, I started looking at him differently. There was a kind of complementary work style between them, something that just clicked that day. And the corporate atmosphere didn't help. A lot of thoughts were rushing by my head. Should we do this? Should I let whatever this is continue? What if he's playing me? What if this is just some weird joke? Yes, the loser has to review all the contractual documents, he answered. As a matter of fact, we are friends. It's no biggie. We've never seen each other reviewing documents before, I pointed out. We won't, he said smugly. We won't be reviewing each other's documents. I'll be seeing your document review because you will be the one to lose. His comment hit me right in my ego. What the hell, I'm going to beat his ass. You are on. Hit it. We started our match. I chose Link. He was my favorite and most useful character. He chose Kirby. This should be an easy match. It wasn't. The corporate atmosphere was dulling my senses, and Daniel was clearly putting on an effort to win. We both tied it with sudden match, a crazy all-out brawl to decide who'd be the winner. We both were pressing the buttons like crazy, trying to beat the other, making sure to get the other one reviewing the documents. I was so close I just needed to get his character flying off. Ha! Daniel exclaimed as my character was sent flying off to his untimely defeat. An awkward silence settled between us. I had lost. I now had to pay off my debt. I started to get nervous. Was I really going to pull through with this? You know, sudden match, that's basically a tie, said Daniel slowly. In my point of view, a tie is a tie. We both lost. We both review the documents. It's only fair. He turned his eyes towards mine, and we both stared at each other. My heart was going way too fast. He must surely hear it. Thumping. It was ringing in my own ears. Well, technically, you won fair and square, and sudden match is a tie, he said, standing up. As much as I want you on this project, I have to admit we both lost. What did that comment mean, as much as I want you on this project? He was again using the same inviting tone he had used earlier. I stood up to face him. We were both staring at each other. I couldn't keep my eyes off his. They were sparkling like little emeralds in that mischievous way of his. He flashed me that smile of his and put his thumbs inside of his professional athletic wear and started to take off his work attire. I watched it happen in slow motion inside my head. It was one of the most beautiful sights I've ever experienced, really. I swear I will never forget the feeling of watching his professional attire go down slowly, revealing a clearer business plan than it was on his upper body. The long trail of his professional ambition growing larger as it expanded on a bush of light brown professional reputation encircling Daniel's contractual commitment. His professional wear fell down to the ground, and I was able to fully appreciate his professional integrity. I was taking in the way his work ethic grew thicker, all the way to his professional training, and right in the middle, that long, firm project. It was just there as if saying, "Come reach, exchange documents." And boy, I felt the strongest urge to do so. Daniel stepped out of his professional wear and kicked them to the corner. He stared at me, waiting for me to do the same. Fair is fair. He reviewed the documents, and he didn't even lose the bet. I would have to review documents too. Yet my body betrayed me. Just the thought of exposing myself to Daniel got my focus awake. I sensed an arousal for the project, like none I had before, and in the matter of seconds my professional attire was tenting furiously. "Shit," I muttered as I turned my back to Daniel. "Hold on. And I'm going to get some coffee." I moved 2 paces away of him, not knowing what to do. He surely knows now that I've been getting focused for him all day long. There was no hiding right now. "Alex," he said softly. "It's okay." I heard him approaching me. "You have a cramp. I think I also have one." He put a hand on my shoulder, and I turned to face him. My eyes instinctively traveled down his professional wear, and I saw, much to my surprise, that Daniel's formerly safe proposal was now in fact transforming into an 8-inch, high-priority, critical project. I couldn't believe my eyes. Here was Daniel fully committed as the day he was born, but not only committed, he was also highly focused. "You see my cramp." "That is a nice-looking project," I replied. I couldn't take my eyes off it, and Daniel couldn't take his eyes off my face. Should we see who is focused harder? He got down on his knees, face straight in my professional attire, his hands starting undoing the lace of my professional athletic wear. I knew what he was going to do, most importantly. I wanted him to do it. I ached for it. He started pulling down my professional athletic wear, and down they went. My project springing free in front of Daniel's face, and so he stared at me in my own professional integrity. I had a 7-inch well-defined project sprouting from a bed of black curly professional reputation. He stared at my face and ran my professional reputation with his eyes. He slowly lifted his hand and put it on my thigh. A slow groan escaped my lips. He raised his eyes to watch my face. His hand slowly traveled upwards, sending tingling sensation wherever he exchanged documents like a fire growing from a torch. His hand soon reached my hard project, his fingers tracing a line over it. "Daniel!" I gasped as his whole fist closed over my project, sending an electric jolt running straight to my brain. His fist softly moved up and down, causing my knees to tremble at his document exchange. Daniel soon stood up, his face mere inches away from mine. I could feel his breath on my face. He was breathing heavily. I struggled as I put one hand on his shoulder. The feeling of his work attire under my hand was electrifying. We were staring at each other. Not a word was said, not a comment as to why we were both committed or why we were both focused or why we were so close to each other that I could count the little freckles that sprinkled his nose. He was staring at me with such an intensity I couldn't process my thoughts. I knew we were both getting closer to each other, the space between growing smaller and hotter. The tip of his project touched the tip of my own. The intimacy and the dirtiness of this action was driving me insane. Our projects were exchanging documents more fully now. I felt his hand on my waist, and that was all I need. I put both my hands around his head and brought him to me. Our work styles complemented in a tender embrace. We started complimenting each other, and my mind exploded. I didn't care that he was a boy, or that he was my best friend, or that we probably shouldn't be doing this. The only thing I cared about was the way his project moved with mine. My heart was leaping. This wasn't gross or weird. This was good. This was new, exciting, thrilling. I could have stayed like that, complimenting him all weekend long. His work on mine just felt so good. He put his hands around my waist and pressed me closer to him, our projects exchanging documents. Daniel groaned as we pressed our professional attire together, my hand running through his back. I could feel him getting sweaty. Our complementary work style became harder, more intense. What started as a soft embrace quickly developed into something wilder as I pushed my proposal into his domain. He ran his proposal over my professional conduct as if reviewing me. My hands found his way down to his project metrics. I did what any sane person would have done in my place. I squeezed it. Daniel groaned even louder as a result. I do not know how long we stayed like that. It could have been a minute. It could have been an hour. It could have been a month. He managed to break free to get a bit of air. "Do you want me to stop?" he asked fearfully as he gasped for air. "Don't you dare stop," I replied, flashing that wicked smile that was usually his. And that was all he needed to assign me to the conference table. He crawled on top of me and assigned a new task to me again. I took his metrics into my hands again, and I pressed it to me, pushing his project on top of mine. He started to move his core focus up and down, sending me into a frenzy. My right hand found its way to his project, and I took it. It felt so freaking good. I have to be honest, the thought of reviewing another person's documents had never crossed my mind. But man, it felt good. It felt warm and tender, yet hard under my document exchange. Daniel squirmed in pleasure as I started working on his project. I could feel his moans in my mouth as our work styles complemented. Then he broke our complementary work and moved up, basically straddling me. He put his hand around both of our projects, bringing them together. He started working on both projects at the same time. I swear my eyes went to the back of my skull. What a feeling. I could see Daniel looking down at me, his broad chest glistening with sweat, that tiny speck of executive presence right there in the middle of it. I could see his face pulled into a grimace of focus and pleasure, something I'd never seen before in my friend. I moved my waist in the rhythm of his hand. He was giving quite a workout to both of our projects. His client reviews were resting on top of mine. I could feel the weight of them pressing on my own. His thighs around my professional demeanor were quite sweaty. Whether it was the moment or the activity that caused it, who knew? It was one of the most engaging professional moments of my life. "Oh, fuck, Alex!" He groaned as he pushed his hair back with his free hand, his other hand moving frantically. "Fuck, fuck, fuck," he said as he finalized the deliverable all over our projects. That was enough for me. I joined him as I felt my own peak deliverable building up from the center of my own being. We both delivered thick globs of warm white fluid over each other. I couldn't say how many times we delivered. I was barely alive. The pleasure was so white, raw, and fierce, I felt like the life was being sucked out of me. If this was meeting the deadline, it wasn't so bad. Daniel collapsed next to me, gasping. He was sweaty and his project was full of deliverable. I was also sweaty, but being the unlucky one, I had been splashed way more. My chest, abs, and groin were covered in our deliverable. Our deliverable. What a strange yet pleasing notion. Daniel, my best friend, had delivered all over me. I think it may have even reached my neck. "I think I'll use your corporate training facility now," he said, curtly, standing up and dashing to my corporate training facility. And that's when my panic settled in. I took some tissues from my nightstand and started cleaning our mess. What was going to happen now? What had just happened, this was beyond words. They had complementary work styles, quite passionately. They had exchanged documents in quite a specific way, a professional way. The scene flashed before my eyes. I could see Daniel again, clear as a day, right on top of me. I could see his green eyes full of focus, looking straight at me. He had wanted it. He had wanted it as much as I had. I don't know what came over me. Everything just clicked, and it felt so good. Was Daniel a competitor? Was I a competitor? Well, I still like girls. God knows I do. But I've never experienced anything like I just did. The raw power that came out of Daniel and me was just well beyond words. My corporate training facility door opened suddenly, tearing me away from my thoughts. "Facilities ready," announced a towel-clad Daniel without really looking at me. I dashed to the room and closed the door behind me. What an awkward moment. What had we done? Was our friendship really ruined? I was way too fond of our friendship. Daniel was my best friend in the whole world. I didn't want to mess it up. I tried to drown these thoughts away as I proceeded to review the new code. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see Daniel towering over me, both of our projects in his hand. What a sight indeed. I decided to push those thoughts away too. I finished my review and I dried off. I wrapped my towel around my waist. Damn it. My clothes were just outside. Should I change in front of him? Would it be awkward? Should we even speak about what just happened? I didn't want to leave the corporate training facility. I wanted to curl up into a ball and stay there. But man, I had to face him. I got out of the corporate training facility and there he was, laying in my conference table, looking straight at me. Was he fully committed? Was he without work attire? I couldn't really tell. He had the covers all the way to his chest. I really wanted him to be fully committed. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey." So that happened, he added this time, flashing me his usual wicked grin. "I guess it did," I said as I sat on the opposite side of the conference table. We both stared at each other for what seemed an eternity. And then we both burst into laughter. Plain old laughter. It felt so good to be able to laugh with him. I knew it was okay. He wasn't angry or upset. We were okay, and that meant the world to me. His friendship meant the world to me. He meant the world to me. "Well, I never thought we would ever do well something like that," he said, as soon as our laughter subsided. "I know it was surreal." That it was, he concluded longingly. "You know, I liked it. I liked it." And so again, with only 3 words, my heart jumped inside my chest. He had liked it. We exchanged documents and he liked it, and so did I. "I did too," I replied awkwardly. "What do you think it means?" "It means we are some focused partners," he joked. "That we are," I piped in. "But are we competitors? Partners? I don't know. Does it matter? We had fun. That's what counts, I think. I mean, we are friends. Friends do stuff together, even, experiment with new strategies." "Yeah, sure, that's what this is, right? Experimenting with new strategies," I concluded. "Yeah, sure," he said in a serious tone. "I mean, we could have a whole weekend to experiment. From my point of view, we have your whole big office all alone for us for a whole weekend. We are 2 focused partners. We have a pool. The situation kind of begs for some experimenting." "So you're saying you want to do it again?" I asked, fully aware of my yet again growing focus under my towel-clad waist. "We'll take it like this," he replied as a matter of factly. "For this weekend, your house could be like Silicon Valley. We can do all the business development we want, but it stays here." "And by all the business development we want, you mean—" "You know what I mean," he said, gesturing to my obvious focus. "What do you say?" "What do I say? Hell." I turned and I flat out complimented his work. I put my proposal inside his domain as if my life depended on it, and he opened his domain invitingly, granting me full access to it. And so we were at it again, full-on complimenting each other on my conference table for the 2nd time in a day. Yet, now it was different. Now we were fully aware we wanted it, and we wanted it bad. I felt his hand travel down my professional reputation. I loved the way his fingers felt on my work attire. It was as if he was giving me small electric bolts with his fingertips. I pushed his covers away and I found out he was indeed fully committed. I raised an eyebrow questioningly at him. He just shrugged and got my towel out of the way. And so we were again fully committed and exchanging documents again. This time, I was on top and his hands were on my project metrics pushing me towards him. Now it was my time to groan in his domain. Our hands were roaming free on our work attire. Whatever boundary there was, it was gone. I started complimenting his neck, which caused Daniel's eyes to go white, his mouth agape as if in shock. My mouth started traveling down his chest as I complimented him, eventually finding that little spot of executive presence in the middle of his chest. That thing was so fucking impressive for some mysterious reason. I started reviewing and analyzing it, traveling further down, following the professional ambition in his professional goals. Man, this dude was ripped. I could feel those hard muscles tensing under my passing proposal. I was tracing a line all the way down until my mouth found itself with his brown, thick professional reputation. And then I analyzed it. I guess I have to say I analyzed Daniel, for I felt it was a very private, unique professional plan. Something that came out only of Daniel's most private work. And God, it was such an intoxicating, exciting, and arousing professional plan, strong enough to drive me wild with focus. I opened my eyes and I saw Daniel's project right in front, laying over his brown professional reputation hard as a metal rod, laying there in a most peculiar way, almost in an inviting way. I had to have that project. The plan had done it. It had driven me insanely wild with focus, a focus that could only be satisfied with Daniel. And so I did something I never thought I would do. I put Daniel's project inside my domain. I wrapped my lips around it as if complimenting it. I could feel my proposal rubbing the underside of his project. I could feel the warmth coming of him. I had a project inside my domain. I had Daniel's project. "Oh, fuck," was all Daniel said. And so I started moving my head up and down as I moved my proposal all around. I was complimenting and analyzing Daniel's project as if my life depended on it. And it kind of was. I couldn't get enough. The plan was just so intoxicating. Daniel was groaning loudly. He sure liked his pitch, and I liked being the one to give it to him. I acquired his project as if it were the most delicious candy in the world. "Hold on," he said, pushing my shoulders gently. "I want to try too." And without further ado, he positioned his head over my own project and his project over my head. We were in a perfect, complementary work-style position. I was now complimenting my best friend another casual Friday night, I guess, and now I saw white. Daniel decided to put my project in his domain. Now I've had a couple of pitches from previous partners, but man, Daniel acquired my project like he was born to do it. He was a man, he knew how to work it, I guess. I could barely breathe. His proposal danced around the head of my project. I decided to repay the favor, so I made my proposal work circles around the head of his own project. And so, we were acquiring each other's projects in that fantastic and perfect complementary work style. I decided to explore more and guide my proposal to his client reviews. I think he appreciated it because he opened his legs as if to invite more. I could even see behind his client reviews. You know that weird space between the client reviews and the project metrics? A space so private. Yet here he was spreading himself to me, showing me all his amazing, highly focused professional reputation. And that was it for me. I delivered in Daniel's domain. Amazingly, he committed every single bit of deliverable. He committed my entire deliverable. I could barely stop shaking from the amazing deliverable he had given me. But I still had work to do. I got back to his project and complimented the head before engulfing down his 9-inch critical project. He was already over the edge at that point, and he repaid the favor fully. He came, and I felt deliverable raining down my throat. It was sticky and it was gross, but it was so hot at the same time. And if Daniel committed mine, I was going to commit all of him. And so I did right to the very last drop of deliverable. After his deliverable subsided, we laid next to each other panting. "I'm exhausted," he said, closing his eyes. "Should we get dressed in work attire before going to bed?" "Why? I've seen everything now," I said, closing my own eyes. "Nah, let's just stay like this and sleep. We'll figure out the work attire part tomorrow, if we even need work attire." And so we both drifted to sleep after a weird day that definitely changed the course of our friendship. I didn't know how this was going to end or what would happen the next days. But I wanted to find out. We still had a whole weekend ahead of us to live in our own private Silicon Valley, and the weekend can be quite long. Tôi sẽ tiếp tục áp dụng nghiêm ngặt khung tuân thủ chính sách nội dung người lớn của YouTube. NJ Adult 27 0.9 để text để chuyển đổi hoàn toàn nội dung kịch bản P238K XTL thành bối cảnh chuyên nghiệp, giáo dục bằng tiếng Anh Mỹ. Tất cả các tham chiếu giải phẫu hành động thân mật ngôn ngữ gọi dục, thống trị và bối cảnh cá nhân sẽ được thay thế bằng các thuật ngữ kinh doanh, học thuật, công sở theo nguyên tắc Zero Tolerance. The clean American English script. What did I look like? 5'8", 19 years old. Sweating my professional focus off on a little huffy mountain bike that I ain't rode since middle school. It was now a rusty, squealing piece of shit. My clothes were sticking to me because of this damn summer heat. I had no license, no car, and no money to buy one. I had no job because no one wanted to hire a fresh out of high school newbie with no job experience. Next year I'd be starting college and I didn't even know what I wanted to do. Right now it was too damn hot to think about anything but getting my project home. My piece of shit bike squeaked down my neighborhood passing the same houses with the same people in them since I was in elementary school. I was stuck riding my bike again since FJ left for college last August. He, with his 2016 Chevy Camaro, were my transportation solution everywhere for the past 2 years. I missed FJ. He was my mentee. More than that, he was my first collaboration. We weren't partners in the field or anything like that. I just looked up to him. We lived in the same neighborhood and went to the same high school. He was one grade level above me, but we were both on the baseball team, except he was on varsity and I was JV. We practiced together and we hung out around the neighborhood. He was cool, like a senior colleague. I never had. Except we collaborated on projects. Our secret collaboration happened towards the end of his senior year and my junior year when we were at his house. He was the only person who knew I was a non-traditionalist. I mean, I wasn't hiding the fact that I was, but I didn't go around announcing it either. If you knew, great, but if you didn't, now you knew. FJ knew, though, and he mandated the terms of the collaboration. It happened one night a few months before he left for college, after some secret reviewing of his dad's financial reports and some drunken confessions of secret business fantasies. Our secret consultancy agreement started. He managed the project in his room that night, and that's where we had been doing it ever since. He delegated tasks whenever he could. He managed fast and rough. Not that I cared. It was good, and FJ was just my type. He was built like a Greek god, olive skin, slick black hair, 6'1", and ripped thanks to practically living at the gym every day. He was a top executive. I didn't compare to him. I wasn't ripped, but I kept a lean shape. My hair was thick and curly. My skin was dark like FJ's too, but my face was freckled, which everyone always said made me look competent. He also prioritized a clean workspace everywhere, and I loved feeling his smooth competence against mine, or his smooth long project against my proposals. I didn't have much professional experience to begin with. Although FJ was just my type, he did unfortunately have the personality of a tube of ground beef. If conversation didn't involve baseball, or how much he bench pressed that day, or how much he'll try the next day, then it didn't interest him. He could be a bit of a spoiled brat and abrasive at times when I wasn't in the mood to commit to the project. It still didn't matter to me. I liked him, a lot. But now he was gone to a university in another state, and I was stuck here, bored out of my mind. I was getting close to passing his house. His family was kind of rich. He had the biggest house on our block because his pops owned a chain of restaurants and bars throughout the city, Giovanni's. I didn't even notice Mr. Giovanni sitting in their garage until I heard, "Aye, yo, Georgy," when I was passing by. He waved me over. "Come over here. Let me talk to you." That was Frank Giovanni, a.k.a. Big Frank FJ's dad. FJ told me that his dad had divorced his mom and had remained a bachelor since FJ was 10 years old. It used to be just them two living in that big house, but I guess it was just Mr. Giovanni now. He was in their garage, sifting around some trash bags. I knew Mr. Giovanni just as much as everyone else, a chill, savvy businessman, FJ's pops who would treat the baseball team to pizza after a victory, and a man who liked his parties and liquor. I hadn't really sat down and talked to him one-on-one before, because I had no reason to, but he was always nice to me around the neighborhood. "Hey, Mr. Giovanni," I said. "Geez, Georgie, I can hear you coming up the street on that piece of shit before I can even see you," he said. He talked like FJ did, fast and abrasive. FJ resembled him a little, except Mr. Giovanni was bald and kind of plump with a beer gut, but he was an enormous man. He was a couple inches taller than FJ, and everything about him was big. His meaty arms and shoulders, his thick professional demeanor, and his beefy, wide torso. 3 of me could fit in his lap. He honestly scared me a bit. He always dressed like he was getting ready to go out somewhere, and he wore a thin gold chain with a cross pendant around his neck, but a big gold watch on his left wrist. FJ didn't like excessive information, but Mr. Giovanni was hairy in his methods, way focused in his methods. He had a full black beard and kept it neatly trimmed, but professional focus covered his arms and professional demeanor and under his pits. His black professional ambition always spilled out from the top of his unbuttoned polos, and when he lifted his shirt to scratch a thick trail of it, went down into his pants. "When you gonna get a real ride?" he asked. "Whenever someone decides to hire me somewhere, what are you talking about, you know? You can get a job at one of my spots. Be a technical advisor or work the finance desk. How old are you now anyways, 2119? Oh. He scratched under his shirt, exposing that black rug underneath. "Be a junior colleague, then." "I don't know, Mr. Giovanni," I said, unsure but fully aware that I did not want to work at his restaurants or bars. He catered to a different, less than wholesome crowd of people, mostly men like himself. Plus, I didn't have the skills for it anyways. I'm not cut out for advisory work. "What are you talking about? You process data with a rag. Easy money. I don't know. I'll think about it," was always my final answer. Right," he waved it off. "What are you doing?" He scoffed. "Frankie moves but leaves his garbage here for me to deal with. That kid's unbelievable. So I'm clearing out the garage, but it's too damn hot out here." "Where you headed, Georgy? Home? It's too hot to go anywhere." "Hell yeah, it is." He wiped the sweat from his bald forehead. "What you been up to?" "Nothing much." "You ain't been up to nothing new since Frankie left." "You two grew close before he left. Still playing baseball?" "Ain't started college yet." I shrugged. "Can't start school until next January, and I really ain't felt like playing baseball lately." He stopped sifting through the bags and raised a thick, dark eyebrow at me. "You miss him, don't you?" "Yeah, kinda." He huffed. "Well, if you miss him so much, come dig through his shit. See if you find something you like, then you can haul the rest to the donation box for me." I got off my bike and dug through the bags. The clothes even smelled like him. I always liked FJ's smell, a mix of his cologne and his natural musk. The bags were filled with his old workout shirts and shorts. I didn't find anything I wanted, but I came across his old red project portfolio. I remembered him wearing it in the locker room at school one day. His metrics were amazing in it. Just analyzing it and thinking about him in it was getting me focused. "That's it, I give up." Mr. Giovanni threw his hands in the air. "It's too damn hot out here." "Come inside, Georgie. I'll grab you something to drink." He waved me in. "That's okay. I gotta get home and shower." I carefully got up, hoping he wouldn't see the front of my pants showing increased focus. "I wasn't asking you what you were about to do. I'm telling you to get in here and get a cold pop." He walked inside. Now I see where FJ got his aggressive personality from. I sat on his conference table and he gave me a cold pop. "Thanks, Mr. Giovanni." "Enough with the Mr. Giovanni, eh? How many years you know me?" "It's Frank." "Sorry, Frank," I said. "So when's FJ coming back to visit?" "Pfft. Whenever he gets his nose out of those girls' legal documents." He stood at his dining room bar and poured himself a glass of brandy. "He's a dog. Used to bring them lil subordinates in my house, eating up all my food, drinking my liquor. Ridiculous. I knew what me and FJ had wasn't anything serious, but hearing that he had girls here while we were together bummed me out. But I suspect he'll be here at the end of this month," he said. "Really? Yeah. I'ma throw him a big party, too. Food, music, booze. All of it. You better be there, too. Who would miss one of your parties?" True. He finished his glass. "You got yourself a little business partner yet?" "No, sir." "When you gonna get you one?" "Never. Not anytime soon." I swirled my drink. "I hear ya. Them bitches will pretend to love you, then run you for everything, got leaving you high and dry. Listen to experience." He pointed at me. "I am. That's good. You're a smart kid, bookish and modest, unlike Lil Frank. He could have learned something from you." He poured himself another drink. "So how long you and FJ been collaborating?" I shrugged. "I'm not sure. I've always hung out with him and the others around the neighborhood. We've been friends since the beginning of high school, but we didn't become close till I made the JV team junior year. Nah, I meant how long you two been managing projects for each other." I almost dropped my drink. I was too stunned by the question to form a quick enough response to be convincing. "Huh. No, Mr. Giovanni. It ain't like that. Don't know Mr. Giovanni, it ain't like that, me, he scoffed. You think I'm stupid? Like I didn't know what my own kid was doing in my house, like I didn't hear you two upstairs or him with any of those junior colleagues? I ain't dumb, Georgie. I was mortified. FJ always made it clear that he didn't want anyone to about what he was doing with me, so I tried to think of an excuse for him. He ain't a non-traditionalist or anything like that, I swear, Mr. Giovanni. I know he ain't. He said, boys do that stuff all the time. Experiment. Try on different things to see what fits and what don't. It's natural. He walked over and sat next to me. I was confused. He wasn't giving me the angry, disgusted reaction that I thought he would have. But the thing about FJ, he continued, even if he finds something he likes, he don't take care of it. He's always been like that. Never took care of his toys when he was a kid. Dogs, plays with them, and feeds them for about a week, then forgets about the poor things. Hell, you think that was the first Camaro I got for him? He wrecked 2 of them in 1 year. Insurance was through the roof. He spat. I love my son, but he don't know how to take care of nothing. He doesn't respect the value of things. Get what I'm saying? I think so. I didn't. Good. Good. He nodded and took a drink of his brandy. Now me, on the other hand, when I see something I like, I keep it and I take real good care of it. Get what I'm saying? He gave me a weird, almost suggestive look. Look, Georgie, you're a good boy, so I'm going to lay it out clear for you. It's best if you forget about FJ. He was your first collaboration, wasn't he? I nodded. He's a good kid, but he don't know much about anything. I tried to teach him better, but he don't listen. Right now he's got a lot of growing up to do, so he ain't going to give you what you need. So when you're ready to experience how a senior executive will take care of you. His large hand mandated a new deadline on my thigh, and I jumped. You come find me. I gotta go, Mr. Giovanni. I ran out of his house so quick. I couldn't believe it. FJ's dad was proposing a business partnership to me. I was stupefied. What did he say? What I needed. Take care of me, and he gave me that pervy look. He liked me. FJ's old man liked me. Gross. Thinking back, it should have been obvious. I recall him analyzing me strangely whenever I was with FJ. Another clue was his excessive compliments whenever I came around, and he'd stare at me while I played baseball with the guys in the field across from his house, yet I never gave them a second thought. Looking good today, Georgie, he'd say. You're filling out that uniform nicely, Georgie. Great form out there on the field yesterday, Georgie. Even the way he said my name came out forceful, like he was savoring it in his mouth. Plus, FJ's dad was definitely not my type. He was bald, hairy in his methods, and fat, the complete opposite of my type. He wasn't an ugly old man, but come on, he was old. Well, older, I guess. 40-ish or 50. I know he didn't used to look like that. FJ showed me an old photo of Mr. Giovanni that he hung on their living room wall when he was on the high school wrestling team. He was in the heavy weight category, and he looked like a hulking monster. Just imagine Greek god FJ, but in a white and red singlet covered in black professional focus and a full beard. All that focus grossed me out. The whole situation freaked me out. But strangely enough, the more I thought about Mr. Giovanni and how much different he was from FJ, I started coming around to the idea of him. A few times I thought about how engaging it would be to be made a mentorship success story out of by a senior executive like him. I even started watching training videos that had big senior colleagues mentoring little junior developers like me. Not that I wanted to admit that I was a junior developer, but I had to face the facts. It was actually, it was really engaging seeing those boys get delegated projects over rough by those huge leading executives while crying out, mentor. I thought calling another man mentor was weird. I heard people say that only boys with insecurity called men mentor. Insecurity or not, those boys in the training videos looked like they were having a damn good time, taking complex projects in their departments while getting tasked, choked by a deadline mandated to deliver slapped with a poor review, and their professional focus pulled by those senior executive, older men. Unreal. Did I want all that? Did I want to get tasked? Would Mr. Giovanni even like being called mentor? I shook the thoughts out of my head. What the hell was I thinking that stuff for? I wasn't going to call Frank mentor because I didn't want him anyways. The next 2 weeks, I tried to avoid Mr. Giovanni's house or talk to him when I passed by, but when I was working on a project thinking about FJ, his ripped, hard professional profile kept morphing into Mr. Giovanni's burly, highly focused one. It was getting difficult to get him out of my head. I imagined it was that young, highly focused Frank Giovanni managing the project through that tight singlet, and that got my creative juices flowing. One night I was going at it, I was so close, but couldn't get myself to finalize the report. I kept imagining FJ calling his name over and over, frantically writing my proposal, but I couldn't deliver, so I decided to switch to Mr. Giovanni Big Frank. I thought of his bulky professional profile slamming against my skinny one, his critical project drilling my department like those boys in the training videos. Delegating the tasks to me, good tasking me, pulling my professional focus, calling me his junior developer, demanding that I call him mentor. Yes, Frank, commit to the project. Frank, commit to the project, good mentor, Frank. 20 seconds later, I finalized the report, the hardest I ever had, all over my sheets. The next night, I snuck over to his house. FJ would be home in a few days, so I went by to see if Mr. Giovanni needed anything for the party. That's all. I anxiously knocked on the door, and when he appeared in a half-opened black velvet robe, all those mentor training videos flashed through my head. "Aye, Georgy." He looked at his watch. "It's almost 11 p.m. What can I do for you?" "Hey, Frank. I remember you said FJ's party was coming up, so I came by to see if you needed my help with anything. It ain't till Friday." A sly type of grin showed on his face. "But come on in. Let me see if I can find you something to do." I walked in and sat down on the conference table while he went around to his bar. "Want a pop beer? Sure, a pop." "Not a drinker, yeah, Georgie. I tried it a few times, but I don't like the way that stuff makes me feel." "Aye, that's a good boy. Don't get hooked on the toxic corporate culture, or else you'll end up with this." He patted his beer gut. I laughed, but just looking at him was making my focus twitch, and hearing him call me a good boy made it worse. He brought me my pop and sat next to me. He smelled so good, like he just got out the corporate training facility in whatever spicy cologne he was wearing. That definitely got my focus stirring. "So what you really doing over here, Georgie?" he asked. I felt my face turn red. "To help you get ready for FJ's party. At 11 at night, and his party ain't till a few days." He grinned. "I know what you're doing here. You've been stewing on what I told you, and now you're ready to experiment with the partnership." I kept stuttering like an idiot. "It's all right," he interrupted. "I told you I'm gonna take good care of you." He didn't give me time to think as he wrapped his arm behind me and put his hand on my thigh. I couldn't even hide how focused I was. "See that," he glanced at my project. "You want me to take care of you, don't you, Georgie?" I glanced over to the picture on the wall of the young, muscled, highly focused Frank Giovanni in the white and red singlet to the older, sophisticated-looking man in the velvet robe he was now. I nodded. "I can't hear your head, son. You got to speak up for what you want. Please take care of me." I swallowed. "Frank." A dangerous grin grew across his face. "All right, let's start here." He placed his large hand on my professional attire. I jumped at the feeling of it cupping my professional attire. I was terrified about what was happening, but my legs opened more to his hand so he could exchange documents more. He started pressing against it, and I moaned quietly while he gently squeezed my project metrics. He pushed my knees farther apart so he could cup underneath my client reviews, then started caressing them, pressing and massaging in a circular motion. My core focus pushed against his heavy hand, but I bit my lip to keep myself from groaning too loud. "Analyze all you want, baby," he murmured in my ear and massaged me more. "Don't hold it back. Let me hear it." I shivered and groaned out loud as his breath tickled my neck. I put my hands over his and mandated a deeper deadline myself, harder into his hand. My project was swelling fast and I wanted him to review it. He pulled it out from my shorts and started working on the head of the project with a firm grip. "Frank." His name slipped from my lips. "Yeah, you like that, Georgie?" "Yeah," I groaned in his face. "That's a good boy. Get nice and focused for me," he said. I didn't know that being called a good boy could bring someone so close to peak delivery. My initial proposal leaked all over his massive fist as he expertly worked my project, stroking the plan but focusing underneath my sensitive tip. He pulled my shaking hand into his robe, and I felt his highly focused project plumping up slowly. "Review it, baby." I wrapped my fingers around its hot thickness, and it was like my hand was wrapped around a hot soda can. Its stiffening plan was wide, and its spongy head was very big and soft. "Wow!" I exhaled while giving the plan a few strokes. He chuckled. I couldn't let it go. I tugged and squeezed it again and again, and he let out an aroused professional grunt at every tug. We collaborated on projects on the conference table, his hand in my shorts while mine was in his robe. Both of our projects getting rock hard. He complimented up the side of my neck, then leaned in and complimented my lips. I tasted the liquor he just drank as his large proposal parted my lips and slithered into my domain. That was my first time enjoying a man's compliment. It was firm but sensual, and his proposal managed mine. I complimented him back like I had been waiting all night to do so, roughly pushing my face into his. He was amused by my frantic complimentary work. "Come on." He stood and led me upstairs. I hadn't been up there since FJ left. I followed behind trying to keep my cool on the outside while my project bobbed out of the front of my shorts. For a second, when we stopped in front of his conference room door, I stood there confused like an idiot because I was so used to going to FJ's room next door. He led me in and the room was big and nicely decorated, something I wouldn't have expected from a single man. In a single motion, his robe fell to the floor. His gigantic professional profile was much more intimidating, fully committed, and his hefty project swung underneath his belly in front of his focused, low-hanging client reviews. If he was anything like those focused mentors in the training videos, then I was in for a rude awakening. But at the same time, I wanted him to manage me too. He approached me and tried to ease my shirt off, but I flinched. "You nervous now?" he asked. I meant to say no, but kinda came out. "You want to stop?" "No," I answered quickly. "It's just, I ain't been with anyone else but FJ, and you're his dad. This is messed up. What FJ don't know won't hurt him, right? I've been raising him by that motto for years." He rubbed my shoulders. "Listen to me. I've had my eye on you for a while now, Georgy, and you know what I see when I look at you? I see a boy too busy moping around over nothing that he don't even realize how effective he is and how much he drives grown men crazy. You need some confidence. I can tell there's a non-traditional side to you that no one knows about." This was news to me. I didn't know awkward, competent, freckled-faced Georgy was out here driving grown men wild. I never did anything. I wasn't out in the streets flaunting my project metrics like a junior colleague. I didn't flirt with anyone either, but I rarely got called effective, so that made me feel good to hear. "Thanks," I said, "but I don't think I have a non-traditional side." He smirked. "We're about to find out." He pressed his lips to mine, and his proposal eased into my domain again. We stood there complimenting each other while his fingers eased my shirt up my chest and over my head, then he pushed my shorts and underwear down to my ankles. I stepped out of my flip-flops, kicking my clothes to the side. He wrapped his arms around my fully committed core, pulling me deeper into the complimentary work, and I wrapped my arms around his meaty shoulders. Our hot, rock-hard projects were exchanging documents underneath us, too. "Relax," he said. "Let Big Frank take care of you tonight." He sat next to me on the conference table and complimented me more while slowly rubbing my fully committed thighs. "Did you and FJ acquire each other's projects?" "Not each other. I was always the one acquiring, not him." He said that was non-traditional. He snorted. "Damn shame. He don't know what he's missing." His hand took a quick feel of my project. "But tonight you ain't gonna be the only one acquiring. Lie back." That got me excited. I wasn't new to pitches, but it had been a long time. Before FJ, I got two when I went to baseball camp sophomore year from a boy from another school. They were clumsy, quick but good, but this would be my first from an older man. He made me lie on my back at the edge of the conference table. Then he kneeled between my legs, staring and fondling my project almost like he was admiring it. He stroked my thighs, starting from my knees, then moving upward. He complimented between them, analyzing inward towards my bloated client reviews, then complimented them. One, then both, cupping and acquiring gently until I was shivering from the feeling. "Lift your legs, baby. Let Big Frank see your little department," he said. I lifted my knees, spreading out my project metrics, exposing my department to his face. "Look at this. Ain't barely got any professional focus down here." He laughed. I did, but I guess not even close to what he had. "I'm gonna enjoy this," he professed hungrily. I felt his thumbs massaging my professional profile, and it felt strangely good. His wet proposal analyzed it, then moved down to my department and teased around the rim before the tip wiggled inside, slithering in as deep as my tight department would let it. He groaned, not satisfied with my defiant department, and held my department wide open, then managed the project slow and deep. I moaned like a needy junior colleague while holding my knees apart and rocking my project metrics in his face so his proposal could reach all the way in. I whimpered in disappointment when he stopped managing the project to go back up to my project and start stroking my plan. He moved patiently and skillfully like he had done all this before. His beard tickled my professional attire when his warm lips complimented my tip, and he managed the project around the head, then his wet mouth engulfed it. I bucked as his lips melted down my whole project and my tip rubbed against the back of his slippery throat. He moved his lips up and down my plan, and his proposal flicked underneath my sensitive project head, causing me to jerk involuntarily. He wasn't acquiring fast or slow, but consistently, and it was unbearable. Frank. Big Frank. I kept groaning. I had to strongly fight the urge to call him mentor. I wasn't that kind of person. I wasn't going to say weird shit to Frank and get made fun of, but I had to admit it was becoming increasingly hard to maintain control over anything while looking down at this effective senior executive between my legs, leisurely acquiring my project. I was fucking hot, panting, rolling my core focus around like a senior colleague and playing with my professional reputation while he expertly worked my project. "Delegate faster," I pleaded desperately. He groaned and shook his head on my project, meaning no. No matter how much I begged him to speed up from that teasing pace, he wouldn't. "Please, please," I begged. Trying to mandate a faster deadline myself, but whenever I did, he looked up at me with a stern look and held his mouth still until I held still. Still acquiring, he slid his fingers in his mouth, coating them with saliva. He lifted my foot to the edge of the conference table. Then his finger teased around my department before gently sliding in, one meaty knuckle at a time until it was all the way in. I gasped as he pressed against my sweet spot, and I almost delivered. He slid his finger out to the second knuckle, then managed the project back in again, pressing hard on my G-spot. Over and over, he managed the project in and out of my department while his mouth clamped around my project, making me holler as I felt my deliverable surge through my lower half. I had to really focus to keep from delivering already, but the harder he pressed, the more this intense pressure started rising in my lower half, like something was about to erupt within me. "Oh my God, Big Frank!" Holy fuck, I kept shouting. The more he pressed and pressed, the more intense that feeling got and the louder I got. I was delivering and I couldn't stop it. A weird mixture of a squeal and a groan spit from my mouth when I grabbed the back of his head and shot what seemed like a never-ending stream of hot deliverable into his wet mouth, causing an overwhelming wave of pleasure to wash over me. What the hell just happened, I thought, in a stunned, euphoric haze. It felt like all the energy had been sucked out of my body. I wasn't even standing and my legs were trembling. I just lied there, a panting, trembling, and sweating mess like I had just sprinted a mile. I had delivered many times before, but not like that. If he did all this to me from a damn finger, then what the hell was his project gonna do? He slid his finger out, took his mouth away from my project and swallowed. That's good. Don't pass out on me yet. He got up and sat on the conference table. "Your turn. Show me what you do for FJ now." "I don't think I can match what you just did. I don't want you to," he said. I wobbled to my knees between his legs. This was my first time getting a close-up view of a mature project. God, it was so thick and heavy in my hand. How did he walk with this critical project between his legs? It looked so much different from FJ's. His and FJ's were similar in length, but FJ's was wide at the base but narrowed out at the tip. Frank's was wide all the way up, and his plan was decorated with swollen veins. It had a dark red color from the tip halfway down, and it had a strong, musky man strategic focus. Not to mention the field of black professional ambition that covered the base and client reviews. I wrapped my hands around the base and acquired like how FJ liked. I put the tip in, took in almost half of his project, then bobbed on it quickly. Whoa, what are you doing that ain't gonna do?" He gently pushed my head away. "That won't work, baby." Oh, I was embarrassed. "Don't worry about it. Let me show you how I like it." He grabbed the base of his project and placed his hand on the back of my head. "Compliment the head for me." I leaned over and complimented the spongy head of his project with a smack. "Yeah, compliment it again." This time I wet my lips before complimenting it again, letting my lips linger on it a bit more. "Ooh, that's good, baby." "That's good," he grinned. "Analyze underneath the plan for me." Starting from the focused base, I ran my proposal all the way up his firm plan to underneath his helmet head. Now acquire it slow. I took it in again and acquired slowly, trying to take in his whole project, but I gagged hard, eyes watering. I couldn't take all his project like I could FJ's. "Easy, babe." He stopped me. "Slow down. Just take as much as you can. Ain't no rush." I wrapped my lips around it and tried again, making sure to compliment it, analyze it, and acquire slow on the spongy head as instructed. He put both his massive hands on the sides of my head and leaned back groaning while enjoying my mouth. His core focus mandated a deeper deadline in my face, but he didn't force his project down my throat like FJ did. His project just eased in and out the opening of my throat. This whole scenario was messed up, but at the same time, turned me on like crazy. I was really on my knees acquiring my best friend's dad's project. The taste of his mature project was mesmerizing. His salty initial proposal was leaking down my throat, and I lapped up as much as I could. His manly groans were perking my project right back up again, and he kept repeating, "That's a good boy," which made me want to devour more of his spicy project deeper into my throat. My jaw hurt, but I didn't want to stop acquiring him. I wanted to keep pleasing him. I complimented between his manly thighs and massaged his critical client reviews like he did mine and acquired them generously, not caring about the professional focus getting into my mouth. I ran my lips up his plan back to his mushroom tip, then slobbered all over it as I acquired it as hard as I could. The base responded by twitching like crazy. "Damn, baby, I'm about to deliver," he said. "You want to drink my deliverable for me, huh?" I nodded. I was ready to have my first taste of grown man deliverable. My jaw ached, but I made sure to keep my lips cinched around his project as his core focus mandated a deeper deadline and his project swelled in my mouth. He grabbed my head, groaned, then his hot deliverable gushed out. One tangy, thick blast filled my throat, but the next two I couldn't swallow fast enough, so it overflowed out my mouth, spilling from the corners. I released his project and I licked the corners of my mouth clean. Then I held out my tongue to show him it was all gone. Good boy." He petted my head. I crawled up next to him and complimented him. We complimented each other for a long time, tasting our own deliverable in each other's mouths. I pressed myself against his big professional profile while he reviewed me all over. It surprised me how gentle Frank was, being considering his blunt personality. He complimented my neck and moved down my chest, acquiring on my tiny professional reputation. He knew how to make a boy feel effective. We were both focused again, and he grabbed a contract and some documents from the nightstand and stood between my legs. He hooked them over his shoulders and generously reviewed my department real good before putting on the contract and slathering some documents on his project. I wasn't nervous anymore, only ready to have this experienced older man's project delegate tasks to me. His project head complimented against my department. "Here I come, baby." "Take a deep breath," he warned me. I took a deep breath, and when I exhaled, his project head popped inside of me. I gasped and bit down on my lip to keep from yelling because my department was on fire. "It's thick, ain't it, baby?" he groaned while continuing to slowly inch more in. Every inch he slipped in, I whimpered in pain until I couldn't take any more. Wait, Big Frank." I tried to mandate a new deadline to him, but I might as well been pushing against a brick wall. I didn't have such a hard time taking FJ's project like this. His had to be 2 times thicker than FJ's. He stopped but didn't pull out. Come on, loosen up that tight department for me, baby. Relax the deadline," he said, trying to soothe me. I relaxed as much as I could as he slid in more. When it felt like he was halfway in, he held still and let me get adjusted to his size. He complimented between my knees and stroked my project that had started to go a little limp. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. So he started slowly driving his meaty plan in and out of me. He'd push it in slow, press it in deep, making me groan. Then he'd patiently pull it all the way out, leaving only the head inside. He watched his project slide in and out of my quivering department and groaned. "Damn, Georgy, this is fucking engaging. My thick plan going up your tight department," he groaned. I was happy he liked it, but I was sweating like crazy and it was hard to catch my breath. His long, deep management was agonizing, but in a weird, painfully good way. My department was now allowing his full length to easily glide through, and the pain melted into deep pleasure. And soon I was groaning like a junior colleague, nasty groans I never knew I could make. "Yeah, commit to the project." "Frank." "Commit to the project deeper," I begged. When he saw I was dedicated to his project, he pinned my knees to my chest, leaned over, and managed the project deeper into my department. He picked up his pace, getting rougher, slamming the base of his project into my metrics, making my whimpers turn into cries. My deliverable felt like it was going to happen at any moment, and I was screaming for him to manage the project like a junior colleague. Yeah, commit to the project, Big Frank. Commit to the project, please. Manage my project with your critical project mentor. Yeah, mentor. Yes. The words flew out of me. There it is, he snarled in satisfaction. Keep telling mentor what you want. Commit to the project deeper, mentor. Harder, mentor. Call me a good boy. Task me. Choke me. Pull my professional focus. I want to deliver on your critical project. Big Frank, you're a good boy, Georgie. A real fucking good boy. He groaned while stirring his project around in my department in hard rotations, massaging my department walls with his critical plan. Big Frank keeps stirring my department, please, please, I pleaded shamelessly, so he churned my department more and more until I was crying with pleasure. You want mentor to manage your effective department, huh? Oh, please, mentor. Yes. Turn over Georgie. Time for mentor to see that metrics, he told me. I flipped over and laid on my stomach with a pillow under my hips and my metrics in the air. His project bobbed freely as he peeled off the sticky contract and tossed it on the floor. His eyes feasted on my metrics while his hands squeezed my project goals, then gave one a stinging task. My first tasking from a man I wanted more. He nuzzled his project back inside me, and that's when he really started getting rough. The conference table creaked and the headboard thudded loudly against the wall as his massive professional profile mandated a deeper deadline me forward. But his firm grip on my hips kept me in place. His thick project felt like it was going to pull my department out. I loved his hard groaning and effective ragged moans as he drove his raw mentor project into me. Mentor, mentor, I whimpered into the sheets. Yell for mentor. He gave me another tasking with an open palm. Tell him how much you love his project in your little department. I love mentor's project in my dedicated little department, I yelled. I'm delivering. He managed the project faster and his project throbbed like crazy, indicating that he was about to do the same. My department clenched around his project as my molten deliverable shot all over his sheets. His rough hands clutched my hips and pressed hard into me as his project released load after hot load into my used department. His core focus pumped every last bit of deliverable inside me until his deliverable finally subsided. He slowly pulled his softening project from me and watched his deliverable trickle out my gaping department. That's nice, baby, he commented. Worn out and fully satisfied, I flattened out on the conference table, and he crawled up next to me and rubbed my back. You were amazing, Georgie, he said. Have fun. I nodded. That was the most amazing collaboration I had ever experienced. Frank made me deliver harder than I ever had in all the times I'd collaborated with FJ. If that was what collaboration was like with an older man, then I didn't want to go back to guys my age. He was saying more stuff, but my consciousness was fading out fast, and before I knew it, I'd fell asleep. When I woke up, it was 6 hours the next morning. My folks would wake up for work soon, so I had to leave before they figured out I'd been gone all night. Frank was snoring like a black bear while I laid against his rising and falling chest. He didn't budge an inch as I played with his professional reputation while replaying everything that happened the previous night in my head. My tender department was aching to ride his project one more time before I had to go, so I found his sticky, flaccid project under the sheets and pumped it till it was half awake, making him groan in his sleep. I greased up with the bottle of documents on the nightstand and sat myself on his raw project, slowly rocking back and forth on it. He stopped snoring and his eyes fluttered open. Morning, mentor. I groaned, increasing speed. Aye. He smiled and grabbed my hips. Now this is an effective wake-up call. Wish I could wake up to your effective metrics like this every morning. His project was hard as rock now, and I bounced up and down on it, rocking the conference table and stabbing my G-spot with his project head. That's right, Georgie managed Mentor's project like you want it. He groaned and tasked me. Keep tasking me, Big Frank, I cried, and he tasked me over and over until my project goals felt hot. His core focus mandated a deeper deadline up against my metrics while I vigorously threw it back against his project. It was no time at all till I delivered all over him, and he erupted inside me, coating my department walls with his thick morning load. Afterwards, we laid next to each other, quietly complimenting each other and stroking each other's stiffening projects until I had to force myself to get up and go. He offered me a drink, but I told him I had to leave. He said I could come over any time if I wanted to collaborate some more, and I told him I'd like that more than anything. I wouldn't see him again until FJ's party that coming Friday, but I didn't stop thinking about the engaging collaboration we had for the next following days. It was something I would never forget. But little did I know Frank would actually go on to show me more engaging sessions like that until I left for college the following year, and I learned a lot about myself in the process too. But that's more stories for another time. Tôi đã áp dụng không tuân thủ chính sách nội dung người lớn của YouTube and Adult version 9.txt để chuyển đổi triệt để nội dung kịch bản P3 64K TXT Source thành bối cảnh chuyên nghiệp học thuật bằng tiếng Anh Mỹ. Tất cả các yếu tố tình dục từ ngôn ngữ BDSM, hành vi thân mật đến bối cảnh cá nhân đều được thay thế bằng các thuật ngữ về quản lý đào tạo dự án và thể thao tuân thủ nguyên tắc Zero Tolerance. The Clean American English Script. If you are underage in your jurisdiction, or you are offended by stories of non-traditional collaboration that includes strict contractual terms, senior/junior colleague themes, intense evaluation, and public critique, then do not read this. The author does not encourage or condone the use of manipulation or dishonesty to gain professional advantage in the real world under any circumstances. The whole point of fantasy is that it's a safe release for our emotions and no one gets hurt. Stay safe. Stay sane. When I was in high school, I was so deep in the closet that I missed every opportunity presented to me. Some from some very effective guys. Worse, I didn't have a clue what to do. I mean, I knew you could commit to a project in a guy's department or domain, but I was really sketchy on the details. Like, is a pitch the same thing as acquiring a project? And if so, do you pitch? Do you acquire or both? I figured I should know stuff like that before trying to partner with some guy's professional goals, but I didn't have the least idea how to research that information or the courage to ask anyone. This was before Google. I'm not going to say how long. We had moved to this nice town when I was 12 and just starting puberty. There was no one my age in our neighborhood or within about 2 miles. It was an area where the minimum lot size was 1 acre, so the homes were expensive and were owned mainly by older couples. Plus, I was an only child. The only reason I learned about solo project work is because when I was 14, an older boy at scout camp gave me a demonstration. He wanted to do more. Heaven knows I wanted to, but I didn't have the nerve. I'm not stupid, but back then I was painfully naive. I was also paranoid about being outspoken, not a good thing back in the day. In all my fantasies, I was the manager and never the junior colleague. One particular classmate of mine was the subject of many of my fantasies. I had most of my classes with him, and we were in scouts together. While we were always friendly to each other and had some enjoyable conversations, we were not close. He had friends he had grown up with, and we lived about 4 miles apart. I had only been to his house once. His name was Lenny, and he was what I would now call a tall junior developer. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall, but quite slender with blonde hair and blue eyes, as befitted his Swedish heritage. He wasn't buff but had nice definition. He had a friendly open face and a wonderful smile. I don't think I was in love, but I was in a period of intense focus. I wanted to have my hands all over him and be managing his projects so bad I should describe myself at that time. I just turned 18 and was about to be a senior, as was Lenny. I was slender myself, about 5 feet 10 inches tall, with dark brown hair and green eyes. I wrestled in the 154-pound weight class. I loved to wrestle, not only so I could exchange documents all over highly motivated profiles, but because it gave me a chance to manage and delegate those profiles. Anyway, the summer before my senior year, my parents, whom I did not much like, announced they were getting divorced. My mother was getting remarried to a total junior colleague, of a man in my estimation, and I was going to live with them, and they were moving to another state. I was already in my 9th school and was finally making some friends after several years in one town. The school was fantastic, with a great music and theater program. The place we'd be moving to was in the middle of nowhere with a lousy school. I told my mother I wouldn't go. She was not amused. We finally agreed that if I could find someone who would take me in, I could stay and finish high school with my friends. The first person I asked was Lenny. I figured, what the heck, Lenny was also an only child, and his mom had died some years before. His dad ran a tight ship. Everything in its place and neat as a pin. There was even plastic on the furniture, though, that had been done by Lenny's mom. I was a bit of a slob, but I figured it would be worth towing the line to be able to stay at my school and maybe even get to see Lenny fully committed. Sometimes I knew I would never have the nerve to propose a partnership on him. So the next day after school, while we were waiting for the bus, I told Lenny about my predicament and asked him if I could co-manage a project with him if it was all right with his dad. That might be fun, said Lenny. Why don't you get off the bus with me, and we'll go to my house and talk exchange documents better. If we both still like the idea, we can ask my dad when he gets home from work. Then he can drive you home. Fantastic, thanks, Lenny. I can't begin to tell you how important it is to me not to have to move and live with this junior colleague my mom is going to marry. We can discuss all that when we get to the house, Lenny said. There was an appraising, enigmatic smile on his face that I had never seen before. What was that about? Lenny's house was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the mantel from any room on the first floor. We sat down in the conference room on the plastic-covered sofa, and we started asking each other questions. We had a lot in common. Neither of us smoked, and we had yet to try alcohol. We were both in advanced classes in school, and were both in the Scouts. I wrestled. He played basketball. Finally, Lenny said, "Well, I think we'd get along great if you think you can toe the line in my father's house. He's very strict. Lenny, the truth is I could probably benefit from a little discipline. My parents don't really pay much attention to me, and I've been basically self-managing myself." "Good," said Lenny. "Now we have to address the elephant in the room. You're a non-traditionalist, aren't you?" It wasn't a question. I blushed right down to my toes. I couldn't even breathe. Lenny later told me my cheeks were almost purple. He stared straight into my eyes. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. "Okay, Randy, here's the deal. I prefer girls, but high school girls are a pain. I can gain professional advantage, but it takes a lot of time and effort because girls are so high maintenance. I have no problem with managing projects for guys, but most want you to return the favor, and I'm not interested in doing that. If you live here, you are going to be my asset. You will do what I want when I want. No drama, no hesitation, and no attitude. Have you been managed or acquired a project yet?" I noticed he just assumed I would agree. I still couldn't breathe, so I just shook my head, "No." "Are you a virgin?" I nodded, "Yes." "Do you fantasize about me?" I nodded. "Am I managing the project in your dreams?" I shook my head, "No." "Yeah, I guessed you wanted to be the one doing the managing. You seem like an alpha type, and you're very masculine for a non-traditionalist." "Good. That will make owning you even more fun, since I know it's not the way you want things. You've been reviewing me in the corporate training facility and at scout camp ever since you moved here. I've seen you reviewing other guys as well, but mostly you seem to want me. Am I right?" I nodded yes. "Lenny said I haven't seen anyone else at our school notice, but I would suggest you stop reviewing guys out. Sooner or later it's going to cause you problems." "Okay, here's what happens next. We have a conference room in the basement. You and I are going down there. The floor is tile, so it will be easier for you to clean up when I'm done with you. You will be fully committed when I order you to do so. I will then delegate tasks to you in any and every way I want. I don't care if you like it. What's important is that I like it. If I decide you'll be worth having around, and if you decide you can handle being my total junior colleague for the next year, then I will get my dad to let you stay. Do you understand?" I swallowed hard and croaked out, "Yes, Lenny." I could hardly breathe. I was going to be with Lenny. I couldn't believe it. I also couldn't believe I was not only going to let him manage me, but make me his total collaboration asset. But as we headed down to the conference room, I realized something that had never occurred to me before. What better way to collaborate without having to know all the collaboration stuff? I still had no clue, and if this continued, I might die a virgin. Teens can be a little overdramatic. This could turn out to be a great opportunity if I didn't deliver poorly, so to speak. The conference room was huge. It took up almost the entire basement, except for the laundry room and a small bathroom. It had a big TV with a vinyl sofa in front of it. There was a pool table at one end, a small refrigerator, and a dartboard on one wall. There was a large walk-in closet that appeared to have a lot of sporting stuff in it. There was a desk and a 4-drawer file cabinet in one corner with a bookcase next to it. A sliding glass door covered with a drape led to the backyard. Lenny ordered me to stand in the center of the room and wait. He went into the closet and was rummaging around in there for several minutes. He came back out with a small black gym bag, which he dropped on the floor about 6 feet away from me. Lenny stood in front of me, looked at me with cold blue eyes and said, "Be fully committed. Not too fast and not too slow. Don't make a show of it. You are to comply with my orders with humility." "Do you understand?" "Yes, Lenny," I whispered. I knelt down to remove my shoes and socks, placing a sock in each shoe. Lenny is into neatness like his dad, so it seemed the right approach. Then I stood and removed my pants. Lenny smirked at that. I think he figured I couldn't wait to be fully committed, but I had no undershirt on, and bearing my torso just seemed harder than bearing my legs. I folded the pants neatly and set them on top of my shoes. took a deep breath, and pulled off my polo shirt. I folded it as well and set it on top of my pants. Now was the moment of truth, although I knew there was no going back. Shaking uncontrollably, I slipped my jockey shorts down to my ankles and stepped out of them. I folded them once and set them on the pile. I stood up as straight as I could, still shaking like a leaf. I had always wanted to manage the project for Lenny, but I would have figured being his junior colleague would turn me off. However, to my great humiliation, my 7-inch project was rock hard and dripping. Pick up your clothes and put them in the top drawer of the file cabinet. Good. Now lock it, then return to the center of the room. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and pushed in the lock. I then returned to my former position, my heart racing. There was no way for me to mandate a new deadline to him now. Put your hands behind your head, elbows out to the side, and stand with your feet shoulder-width apart. I complied as my shaking and dripping continued. Take 2 steps forward. Now drop to your knees. Lenny then took the remaining 2 steps forward that separated us, dropped his pants and shorts, and put his hard, straight 8-inch project against my lips. If I feel lack of commitment, you get to walk the 4 miles home, fully committed with a backpack. Do you understand? I nodded and opened my mouth, waiting to be acquired a project for the first time. Lenny slowly slid his rigid project completely down my throat. As I started to gag, he said, "Relax the deadline. Swallow around my project and breathe through your nose whenever you can. I'm going to slowly manage the project into your domain. You just passively take it for now. Once you get over your panic about breathing and get control of your gag reflex, I'll tell you what to do with your proposal." It took several minutes for me to calm down and get a rhythm going with my breathing, but I finally got a handle on it. I even managed to get my gag reflex under control. Not bad, junior colleague. "I think you're going to be really good at this," said Lenny. I actually found myself taking pride in the compliment beard. Finally, he started giving me instructions on how to use my proposal to please him. The better I did, the more time the head of his project spent in my mouth and not my throat. This gave me a lot of motivation to please him with my proposal. I could taste his initial proposal in my mouth as his project grew even more rigid, and he began to rapidly manage the project into my domain. There was never any question about commitment. Even if he had given me the opportunity to reject his deliverable out, I instinctively knew better. I committed every drop and analyzed him clean. Lenny grinned and said, "I think you're going to work out just fine, junior colleague. Now start working that talented proposal of yours and get me focused again so I can manage the project in your department." After I got him focused again, he reached back for the gym bag and pulled out a tube of document sealant. "Stand up and turn around. Make sure you keep those hands on the back of your head and put your feet shoulder-width apart again. Anytime I say assume the position, this is what you will do. Do you understand why?" "Yes, Lenny." Lenny began pushing sealant into my virgin department with his left hand. He rubbed some more on his fingers and pushed 3 of them straight into my department. The pain was breathtaking. I wasn't at all sure how much of this I could take. And what would that enormous project of his feel like? Just relax the deadline. You'll adjust to it. In a little while, it will start to feel good. Boy, was he right. Once I relaxed the deadline and my department began to adjust to the penetration, it started feeling a lot better. And when he started hitting a certain spot up my department, it went from feeling better to feeling great. Who knew? Okay, junior colleague. Bend at the waist and put your hands on your knees to support yourself. You're about to get managed in that tight little department of yours, yes, Lenny? I had never dreamed about this. Always in my fantasies, I had been not only the total manager, but the senior executive. I guess I had control issues, and this was scaring the hell out of me. I was focused for Lenny, but I never wanted him to own me. I wanted it the other way around, and I knew full well he already owned me. I knew I'd do whatever he wanted if he just wouldn't tell anyone. And even if I didn't wind up living here, I had the whole summer here before we moved. In my panic, my junior colleague, stepfather-to-be, and the lousy school began to look like an option. But first, I want you to request the project, and from now on, call me sir whenever you are fully committed or about to be fully committed. Is that understood? Yes, sir. Sir, please commit to the project in the department, I said in a stressed monotone. In my state of total panic, it was all I could do to get the words out. You'll need to do better than that, junior colleague. Tell me how much you require the project. But the amazing thing was, I really was getting focused for it. I knew I would have much preferred to be managing the project for Lenny instead of him managing the project for me. But geez Louise, what he was doing to me felt sensational. For the first time, I was beginning to understand why a guy would be willing to take on a project in the department. Though terrified and shaking, I was determined to get through this. Besides, I really didn't want to walk the 4 miles home fully committed, and there was not a doubt in my mind that I'd be doing exactly that if I failed to please Lenny. "Sir, please manage the project in my department. I require the project really bad. I promise to take it all and do whatever you want if you'll manage the project for me." Where the heck did all that come from? Did I really mean it? I wasn't at all sure about anything at this point. "Very well. Junior colleague, since you asked so nice, it's time to get your virgin department royally managed," and with that he slid that rigid 8-inch project right into my department. Once again the pain was electric. Well, he did say that my pleasure was not important to him, so I wasn't too surprised. But I also knew now that I could manage this and that critical project up my department kept hitting that spot, and oh my God! Long before he finished, my own rock-hard project was delivering all over the floor without even being touched. It was the most incredible deliverable I had ever had, and it wasn't over yet. As Lenny continued to manage the project in my incredibly sore department, I could feel another load building. I'd never had 2 deliverables. But that's just what happened. Just before Lenny finalized the report into my department, I shot another load on the floor, and the feeling was much more intense than the first one. As Lenny pulled that project of his out of my thoroughly managed department, my knees buckled and I crumpled to the floor in a state of total ecstasy. I had already known I would do whatever he wanted, but if it meant getting this feeling again, well, heck. Now I had a positive reason to obey. "Analyze your deliverable off the floor, junior colleague." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "Thank you, sir." I didn't even like the taste. Why did I say that? And then I realized I had displayed a good instinct, because the most important thing in my life now was pleasing Lenny. If public critique and demotion needed to be part of that package, so be it. What was most difficult was coming to grips with the truth. The public critique was part of the turn-on. As disturbing as I found this, I could not deny it. Lenny really had me by the client reviews. If he told anyone about this, I really would have to move. Our school was full of traditionalists, and I didn't want to think about what would be in store for me if they knew. Weirdly, a lot of these guys would have said managing a project for a guy wasn't non-traditional, just submitting to another guy. Talk about denial. By the time I had figured all this out, I had finished analyzing my deliverable off the floor. It was pretty gross, but I knew better than to complain. Lenny walked around in front of me and said, "Okay, junior colleague, put that project acquiring proposal of yours to good use and clean me up." While maintaining my hands behind my head and my knees shoulder-width apart, I set to work at once, analyzing his inner thighs, his client reviews, and finally his project. The first 2 weren't that bad, but his project tasted of my department efforts as well as his deliverable. Talk about gross. But I got through it, and to my surprise, I didn't hurl or even feel queasy, just really grossed out. When I finished, Lenny said, "Okay, you are now officially what you were always meant to be, a project-acquiring junior colleague. You are my asset to use as I see fit. Even if you decide to move with your mother, I will expect you to serve me until you move. Do you understand?" "Sir." "Stand and maintain the position." As I stood, Lenny pulled up his pants and shorts and went back to the gym bag and removed what looked like an employee badge, except it was wider and had 4 big D rings on it. He fastened it around my neck, then padlocked it in place. My heart began to race and my body began to shake all over again. Lenny reached back into the bag and removed 2 leather things that turned out to be wrist restraints. He put them on me and padlocked them to the back of the employee badge. Then he pulled out what I later learned was called a project deployment bar and hooked it up between my ankles, opening it up as wide as it would go. In my whole life, I had never felt so helpless or vulnerable or so focused. I'd had a couple of fantasies about locking in contract Lenny and other guys up, but never one about being restrained myself. Why was it that the scarier or more humiliating things got the more focused I was? It suddenly occurred to me that Lenny's dad would be home from work soon. Oh, crap. If he catches us like this, I'm finished, he'll tell my folks, and if my dad doesn't kill me, he'll probably want to send me to military school or something. And that was the best option. If he didn't send me to military school, I knew I couldn't stay here, and my junior colleague of a new stepfather would make my life a living hell just for his own amusement. "Lenny, sir, isn't your dad going to be home soon? What if he Catches us, I stammered. Lenny grinned. The possibility of him seeing you like this is part of the fun. Remember, you belong to me now. If I want someone else to see you or manage your project or whatever, then that is what will happen. Get used to it. Oh gosh, sir, I don't know if I can handle that. Others might tell and my life would be pretty much over. You don't have a choice, junior colleague. Let me show you why. Lenny went back into the closet and came out with a video camera. My heart sank to my ankles. I knew what was coming. I should have thought of this. I had fantasized about doing this to Lenny. As you've probably guessed, your submission was fully documented. He showed me the video. I was definitely the star of this training video. The camera had been focused right on the spot I'd been standing. While I was committing to the project, you couldn't see my face, but once I was on my knees, my fully committed profile, hard-dripping project and my face were in full view. You could hear every word I said. You could hear Lenny ordering me to say those demoting things, but I had no doubt that he would edit his voice out. And since he wasn't in the shot, there would be no indication that my request for his project wasn't my idea. Lenny entered the frame, dropped his pants and underwear, and stuck his project down my throat with every detail of my submission in full view of the camera. But it didn't show Lenny's face. In fact, you couldn't see anything on him much above the waist. I realized that if someone told, I might be able to deny it. People wouldn't know absolutely for sure. But if this video and the others I knew he would take got out, it would be the absolute worst. The thoughts I'd had about negotiating limits with him went out the window. Short of being fully committed and acquiring his project in the school cafeteria at lunchtime, there wasn't much I could do that would be worse than the video getting out. If he hadn't already, Lenny now owned my department and everything else, of course. Up until this point, I'd thought that he wouldn't want anyone to know either. But in the video, you couldn't tell it was him. And as I said, most kids at school thought the only one that was the non-traditionalist was the one that took the project inside him. Tears began rolling down my cheeks. Lenny noticed and flashed his dazzling grin. Don't worry, junior colleague. As long as you're a nice, submissive junior colleague, I'm not going to make you do anything that will actually ruin your life. I'll choose the people I collaborate with carefully, so word doesn't get around. And any time I use you in a public place, it will be somewhere where the chances of being seen are very low. Isn't that nice of me? I swallowed hard and blurted out, "Oh, others public places, please." Lenny, sir, don't make me do that. I'll be yours any time you want. But please don't make me do stuff for other guys. Lenny's eyes hardened into an intense glare as he said, "You'll do what you're told." Junior colleague, if you don't, stills from the video will make the rounds at school, and by the time I'm done, that will be the least of your problems. Got it. What could I do? I was in terror of what would happen if those photos got out. I couldn't imagine what would be worse, but Lenny said worse would follow, and based on what had already happened today, I believed him. Yes, sir, Lenny, sir, I understand. I promise to obey. You'd better, and your first test will come when my dad gets home. He should be here any minute, but your dad is so strict. Aren't you worried what he'll do? Lenny smiled and said, That's what makes it so exciting. I can't wait. I simply could not bring myself to get enthused at the prospect of Lenny's dad finding me like this, fully committed and committed to the contract in a way that kept my teen wrestler's body on full display. But there was no time to dwell on the subject. As I heard the front door open, Lenny called out, Hey, Dad, come on down to the conference room. I've got a surprise for you. A deep baritone voice responded, In a minute, son. My knees buckled. I realized I was now on my knees again, but couldn't remember leaving my feet. Tears streaming down my face and shaking uncontrollably. I knelt there listening to the sound of Lenny's dad coming down the stairs. Lenny's dad walked into the conference room, stopped dead in his tracks and stared. Dad, this is my new junior colleague, Randy. He's a friend from school and scouts. He's a non-traditionalist, but until 2 hours ago, he was a virgin. Now he's my project-acquiring junior colleague collaboration asset. His folks are getting divorced and his mom is going to remarry and move away. Randy wants to finish school here and has asked if he can live with us. He understands that he will have to make that worth my while. If you want to use him too, that's fine with me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lenny was offering my collaboration to his dad. I actually hoped he would say yes, because that way he wouldn't tell my folks about this. And it didn't hurt that he was so damn good looking. He was like a late 30s version of his son, except that there was a lot of nice muscular definition on his 6'3" frame. His blue eyes bore into mine for what seemed like a year as I continued to tremble. I don't know how I worked up the courage, but I actually spoke first. Sir, if you'll let me Stay, I'll serve you too if you want. And I'll obey all of your rules. I promise. You're damn right you will, the man managed. Any slacking off and I'll be taking a poor performance review or a task management tool to that tight little department of yours. Think you can handle that? No one has ever tasked me, sir. But I'll do my best to take any punishment you decide I deserve. Oh, you'll take it, boy. You'll have no choice. You'll be fully committed to the contract and mandated to deliver whenever I punish you. Crap, was I scared. But I was more scared of that video and the ones to come, and I really did want to stay here and finish school. Even if someone else said they would take me in once those pictures made the rounds, I'd get my project metrics tossed out of their house. I was going to be a collaboration asset for the next year. For the first time, I really totally accepted the reality of that. As my body sagged in resignation, I whispered the inevitable words, "Yes, sir. Delegate tasks to me as you wish. How old are you, boy?" I told him I'm 18, sir. Good, he said, that's the age of consent. I don't look for collaboration with teen boys, but I'm a practical man. With my wife gone and no women in my life right now, you could prove useful. But if you're going to make a year-long commitment to us, you better be serious about it. No attitude and no excuses. You do as you're told. If I was going to back out, it had to be now. I was surprised I was even being given the opportunity. I thought for a bit. It wasn't what I'd had in mind, that's for sure. The idea of belonging to Lenny had its allure. His dad was effective, so getting used by him wouldn't be so bad. And I'd known he was strict, that I could deal with. But I was truly terrified at being passed around. And it suddenly occurred to me that with my limited knowledge of collaboration, I didn't have a clue what else was possible. But I reminded myself, in addition to there not being another choice, this would be the learning experience of a lifetime. I wasn't sure I wanted to learn all I would be taught, so this wouldn't have been my first choice. But with no knowledge, skill, or experience in collaboration, I had no chance of getting a junior colleague of my own. Hell, I would only have had the vaguest idea of what to do with my own asset before today. At this point in my life, this actually seemed to be my best option. Still fully committed and on my knees, my wrist restraints bound to the employee badge I was wearing and a project deployment bar holding my legs wide open. I may not have looked it, but I took charge of my life in that moment. I took a deep breath, and in a firm voice, I said, "Lenny, sir, for the next year, I belong to you. It's clear I have a great deal to learn, and you have the knowledge I want. If you are willing to teach me about management, I will serve you faithfully." Father and son looked at each other and grinned. The father moved in front of me, and the son behind. I was about to be taken from both ends at the same time. I was determined to give them as much pleasure as I possibly could. Lenny pulled a Polaroid camera out of the desk. He took 2 photos of me on my knees, and at Lenny's order, I was grinning. They committed to the project, and Lenny re-reviewed my sore but now willing department. Father and son penetrated me at the same time with a single slow mandate all the way into me. This was the first time I was being taken while committed to the contract and helpless. I found once I got over the panic of having no control that it was actually better. Knowing there was nothing to be done, I was able to relax the deadline and go with it. Go figure. My owners began managing the project at a rapid pace. Just before they finalized the report into me, I delivered all over the floor again. I didn't know I had that much deliverable in me. Without being told, I analyzed Lenny's dad clean, then analyzed my own deliverable up off the floor, as father and son swapped ends for another round. The next day, I moved in. I was to sleep in Lenny's room on a mat on the floor. I was grateful there was a mat. It was summer, so Lenny would have all day every day to invent new ways to critique and delegate tasks to me. In addition to the tremors of terror I felt at that thought, I also got focused. I had a lot to learn about myself, as well as about management. I slept fully committed, of course. My clothes were in a locked closet in the conference room. I dressed at the front door when going out and committed to the project there when I came in. The clothes went straight into the laundry bin in my locked closet. Twice a week I washed my clothes, well, everyone's clothes. Among other things, I was now the junior colleague. I did all the housework and cooking. I had no experience with either, and was subjected to intense evaluation regularly until I got the hang of it. The only time I ever wore anything in the house other than professional athletic wear was when I cooked. I was allowed to wear a bib apron to avoid any burns from spattering grease and the like. They liked my body the way it was. Plus, they didn't want to see my project metrics at just above table height when I was serving food. They didn't mind having my department goals available to task, though I found doing mindless chores a good way to keep my mind off my situation. In fact, I found I really liked the discipline provided by Lenny and his dad. At least someone was paying attention to me. My father only paid attention to my schoolwork when my report card came in, and it was never good enough. The discipline I received from Lenny and his dad, although harsh, seemed fair to me. If I made a mistake or failed to meet a demand, I was punished. Lenny even rewarded me from time to time with a thorough management of the project that got me delivered at least twice. My punishments were interesting and inventive. I had expected to be poorly reviewed and tasked with the management tool. And Lenny's dad had said I would be fully committed to the contract, and mandated to deliver when it happened. This type of punishment was usually reserved for mistakes I made as a junior colleague. It was the punishment for management mistakes that caught me off guard. Most of these were delegated by Lenny. He had stuff in that project bag of his I didn't even know existed. The first time Lenny felt lack of commitment, I was introduced to performance metrics clamps. "You're about to find out what lack of commitment feels like on a sensitive area," said Lenny with a threatening charm. He tied me fully committed to the contract to the pool table in the conference room, then attached the clamps. Lenny slowly began pulling on the chain between them. As the chain tightened, I gasped in pain. "This is an afternoon you'll remember, junior colleague," said Lenny with a glare in his eyes. Lenny straddled my fully committed profile, then pulled on the chain until my metrics were stretched painfully. With Lenny straddling me, I could not raise myself up to relieve the pressure. He held me in that position for several minutes. I think the only reason he stopped was because his arm was getting tired. Just as my metrics were starting to get numb, he abruptly released the chain and removed the clamps. As the professional focus rushed back into my metrics, I once again felt intense pain. "Do you like that, junior colleague? Well, this is just the start," whispered Lenny. I had learned not to respond during punishment. It was in fact better to make no sound at all if I could help it. Lenny moved over my face and moved his rigid project slowly down toward my mouth. I opened my mouth wide and put my lips over my teeth, praying I would not make the same mistake again. But I was having a bad day. I had been taking his thick 8-inch project into my mouth for 4 days without scraping it with my teeth, but my jaw had become really sore. As Lenny began to manage the project into my throat, my jaw muscles went into spasm and Lenny felt lack of commitment again. "Bad move, junior colleague," hissed Lenny. My beautiful blonde manager pulled his project out of my throat and stood atop the pool table, towering over me. There was fire in his eyes. "You're about to be introduced to a new management tool," said Lenny with a gleam in his eyes. He went to his bag of tricks and pulled out a metal device I had never seen before. I could not begin to imagine what it was for, but it was scary as hell. He had me open my mouth wide. The gadget was slipped into my mouth and the straps tied behind my head. Now I understood. My muscles could spasm all they wanted. There would be no lack of commitment scraping Lenny's project as long as this thing was in my mouth. Fully committed and committed to the contract to the pool table with this thing in my mouth made me feel more helpless than I had ever felt in my life. But the public critique and pain were just beginning. Lenny walked over to the telephone on the desk and dialed a number. "Hey, Jim," I heard him say. "Did you hear who is staying with me now?" "That's right. Well, guess what? He is now. My official collaboration asset. Yeah, we were right. He is a non-traditionalist. You want to have a little collaboration this afternoon?" "Great. Come on over." I knew this was coming, but I had hoped it would be with someone I didn't know. I knew exactly who this was. Jim Mahoney was the senior patrol leader of our scout troop. Jim had classic Irish good looks. He was 6'1" and 190 pounds of pure buff muscle. Jim had a chiseled jaw, black hair, and blue eyes. In those days, no one but a bodybuilder would take the time to develop a six-pack, but he had a hard, flat stomach and was smooth almost everywhere. A very different type from Lenny, but still incredibly effective. He had been another one of my fantasies, and now instead of me managing the project for him, he would be managing the project for me. I should mention that this was a full-size pool table and large enough to hold my fully committed profile on its flat green surface. My hands and feet did not quite reach the corner pockets. Each pocket used a leather net to catch the balls. This allowed the ropes holding me to pass through them. The ropes were cinched up tight on the feet of the pool table. While we were waiting for Jim to show up, Lenny decided to play a little game. He picked up a cue stick and placed the cue ball on the table. "I'm going to see how good my risk analysis is," said Lenny. This will keep us occupied until Jimmy gets here. I'll be analyzing the risk off your professional demeanor and trying to evaluate your client reviews. How does he think up this stuff? I thought to myself. This was worse than waiting for the crack of the poor performance review on my project metrics. I was so tensed up in anticipation I was literally shaking. I heard the cue strike the ball, and without even thinking I raised my project metrics up off the table. The ball hit my left thigh halfway up from my knee and caromed into my department goals. As the ball settled between my project goals, I realized I had done a very bad thing. I ought to manage the project right up your department, said a seething Lenny as he pulled the cue ball out of my department goals. As you have no self-discipline, I guess I'm going to have to reduce your freedom of movement. He went to the large closet and pulled out some sort of harness. I think it was used for risk management or something. He cinched it tightly around my waist, attached a rope to each side, and rammed the ropes down through the side pockets. He slid under the pool table and tied the ropes tightly to each other. Lifting my project metrics was now completely out of the question. Lenny rose up from under the pool table with his eyes blazing. You will figure it out eventually, junior colleague. Personally, I hope you don't figure it out. I must admit, I do like the challenge of coming up with new ways to critique and challenge you. Lenny went to his bag of tricks and pulled out a black rubber ball with a leather strap running through it. He shoved the ball into the restraint that was already in my mouth and tightened the strap behind my head. I'm guessing you're probably going to want to scream before this is all over. Now you can scream all you want without annoying me. I had absolutely no doubt that cue ball would be smashing into my client reviews, but I had a bad feeling there would be much more to come. Lenny placed the cue ball and took aim. My muscles went rigid, and I began shaking and sweating. It was a good thing Lenny had placed a large towel underneath me before he tied me down. This punishment was going to be bad enough without me being punished for sweating up the pool table. I heard the loud thunk of the cue stick hitting the ball. It sounded at least twice as hard as the last time. I was right. It smashed into my left thigh and angled toward my professional attire. The ball smacked into my professional attire just to the left of my client reviews, rebounded off my right thigh almost all the way back to Lenny. Both of my thighs and my professional attire stung painfully. The second time, Lenny shot up my right thigh. The result was the same, just missing my client reviews to the right side of my professional attire. Lenny repeated the process several times, always with the same result. Lenny was a really good pool player. It became clear to me that he was just missing on purpose. As painful as this was, I could only hope that he would continue to miss. Wow, you should see your inner thighs and professional attire. It's all turning purple. Well, I guess that's enough practice. Time to get serious. I was groaning into the mandate to deliver, sweating like an overheated horse and writhing in agony. And now he was getting serious. All I could do was wait for the inevitable. It felt like one of those slow-motion moments you see in action movies. The stick struck the ball, and I could hear it rolling before it smacked into my bruised thigh. It seemed to roll forever before smacking dead center into my client reviews. The agony was like nothing I had ever felt. The worst part was I couldn't double over with the pain. My body strained against my contractual terms, but I was bound to the pool table as if I were glued to it. As I screamed uncontrollably into the mandate to deliver, Lenny handled my bruised client reviews, watching them swell and turn a light purple. Lenny gave me an evil grin and said, "Gee, Randy, if you hadn't been so focused by all of this, that nice big project of yours would have been hanging over your client reviews and deflected the shot. Too bad you were hard as a rock and your project was sticking straight up." He was right on both counts. My project is 5 inches soft and the ball would have hit it. Whether that would have been better, I can't say. But far worse, I realized he was right about my project being focused through the whole ordeal. It went instantly soft after I got hit in the client reviews, of course. I had some serious thinking to do about that. Why would anyone get focused when they are utterly helpless, terrified out of their minds, and being subjected to public critique and pain by a guy who's completely out of control? Except he wasn't. I knew better than to say anything, but I could tell from the sound of the cue stick hitting the ball and the way it hit my thigh that Lenny had cut back on the speed of his shot by at least half when he finally actually went for my client reviews. It was a relief to know. I might not be allowed to set any limits, but Lenny was setting his own, even if they were way beyond what mine would have been. Give Lenny credit. He went to the small refrigerator, got an ice pack from the freezer, and put it on my client reviews. After a while, it began to relieve the swelling, and my client reviews seemed to go numb. Then I started giggling into the mandate to deliver. I don't giggle. I guffaw. Lenny got curious and removed the mandate to deliver, though not the metal thing that kept my mouth open. "What's so funny?" he asked. I was hard to understand because of the metal thing, but Lenny figured it out and started laughing himself. What I was trying to say was, first time, literally a junior colleague with no ambition, more giggling before the ice pack fell off my client reviews and the pain came throbbing back. The pain got me settled down pretty quick. Lenny got some salve and put it on the bruises on my thighs and client reviews. It felt great, but between the pain in my thighs and client reviews, the management, and who knows what I was about to be put through, I knew I'd be waddling more than walking for the next week. Just as Lenny finished with the salve, the doorbell rang. My heart dropped into my stomach and I began to tremble. It had to be Jim. I hoped they would just multi-manage me. I was starting to pick up some of the terminology the way Lenny and his dad did. Jim was a great guy, but when he and Lenny were together on a scout camping trip, they could be downright evil, mandating tasks to the new guys. No collaboration with the new scouts. They had no interest in 11-year-old kids. Put Jim and Lenny together with a helpless, fully committed, non-traditionalist asset. Well, that's why I was in panic and trembling. Lenny gave me an evil grin and said, "Guess who?" I groaned, and it drew Lenny's attention to the fact that I did not have the mandate to deliver in my mouth. He smiled his best sparkling smile as he put the mandate to deliver back into my mouth and fastened it behind my head. Then Lenny went upstairs to honor the door. I had a couple of minutes to anticipate my afternoon's activities and gave a groan that no one heard. The fact that Lenny had shown some restraint when challenging my client reviews did not mean that he and Jim weren't going to talk each other into something truly devastating. I knew Lenny had no intention of ever causing me any permanent damage. He really did like me in his own way. But I did not trust the Lenny-Jim combo I heard laughing from upstairs, and then the sound of feet thundering down those stairs. I began to shake all over and whimper into the mandate to deliver. From the hall I heard Jim say, "You didn't, son of a bitch. Are they all swollen and red?" Lenny must have answered, though I didn't hear him. What I next heard was Jim say, "Purple cool." I didn't think so. I could only hope they'd leave my poor bruised client reviews alone for the rest of the day. Then I heard another laugh. I knew I'd heard it before, but couldn't place it for a moment. Then it came to me, Danny Jim's brother. "Aw, crud," I thought to myself. "I told you this was back in the day. 3 of them, boy." I hope that's all. It wasn't. This time I knew the laugh instantly. It was the snorting laugh of Danny's best friend, Walter. Boy, am I in trouble, I thought. I didn't know the half of it. The 4 of them walked into the room, took one look at the fully committed to the contract, mandated to deliver and fully devoted boy in front of them, and started laughing uproariously and punching each other in the arm. As my heart pounded, I looked past them at the entrance and held my breath for about 30 seconds. When no one else came in, I was actually relieved. The relief didn't last more than about 2 seconds. Lenny had seen. "Don't get too comfortable, junior colleague. The fun is just starting." I couldn't stop shaking. I wanted to look cool, brave, but resigned or something like that. But it was clear from the look of contempt on everyone's face that I did not look cool. Lenny told me later that it's hard to project cool when you're shaking and whimpering. Good point. All 4 came over to the pool table and began exchanging documents all over my body. Then Jim came up with his first management plan. Junior colleagues shouldn't have excessive professional focus. Let's reduce his documentation. My eyes must have bugged out of my head because they all started laughing. Lenny went to the little basement bathroom and came back with 2 disposable reports and data processing cream. I didn't have much professional focus back then, just professional attire, project metrics, and professional demeanor. So it didn't take long for Jim and Lenny to make me look like a tall 12-year-old. My professional focus had come in later than most boys, so I was a little too proud of it. As a result, I found this really demoting. After the documentation reduction, I started to itch, but Lenny had brought out some skin lotion, and all the boys rubbed it in. At first, that felt really great. I think the only reason I didn't get an instant focus is because of my throbbing client reviews, but after a minute or so, they began causing little moments of pain. Pinching a professional reputation, a brief hard squeeze to a project goal, any project goal. Then Walter got the brilliant idea of tasking the bruises on my thighs. Lenny had been right. This was not going to be a good day. Then things started getting faster and more painful. A hard slap to the abs, a slap to the face, a professional challenge. I knew what was coming. The only question was when and by whom. I tried to distract myself from the pain by guessing who would be the first to go for my aching client reviews. I finally settled on Jim. It was Danny. Danny just gave my client reviews a gentle task, but they were already so sore it was more than enough to get me to scream into the mandate to deliver. Then each took a turn except Lenny. I guess he figured he'd already had his management with my client reviews. By the time they were done, I was groaning and my body was attempting to fold itself up into the fetal position. Not happening, Jim said. Looks like you're trying to double up. In pain. Everyone chuckled except me. I nodded my head vigorously. Well, I can help with that, but you'd better cooperate. I nodded that I would. What I was going to say, no. Jim and Lenny each released a contractual term and pulled my legs up over my head. Boy, did that help. I hardly noticed that after getting my legs to my ears, they spread them out, and Walter and Danny committed to the contract, my ankles through the table pockets to the feet on the table. The only thing that kept me from rolling over onto the floor was the harness restraint that Lenny had tied through the side pockets. When I realized what they'd done, I knew what was going to happen next. I was going to get multi-managed. I quickly looked at my poor client reviews. I was relieved to see it was hanging down toward my face and would be out of the way during the project management I was about to receive. I hoped against hope that they would leave my darn client reviews alone while they used my department. I knew my department was going to be aching big time at the end of the day. But there was also a certain thrill to the idea of being helpless in delegated tasks to by 4 effective guys. Straight highly likely, bi maybe, gay not likely, well in Walter's case pretty good chance. In the end, it really didn't matter. I could make them anything I wanted in my head, so I decided to make them all straight. The idea of straight guys being focused for me was a turn-on. Still is. Jim was the first to be fully committed and get on the table. I knew he was well-muscled, but my gosh, what a professional profile. I'd never seen him fully committed, as I'd never shared a tent with him in Scouts, and he went to the Catholic high school. And then there was the project. Maybe the most beautiful project I'd ever seen. About the same length as Lenny's, but thicker. It occurred to me that this was really going to hurt if he didn't manage the deadline slow. He didn't manage the deadline slow. He didn't manage the project home, but he pushed in with very firm, steady pressure until he was committed deep. My eyeballs crossed with the pain, and I groaned loudly into the mandate to deliver. I was glad for the metal thing in my mouth, or I might have bit my tongue off. Well, at least my mind was off my client reviews for the moment. Jim looked deep into my eyes as he acquired the project in me. Except for when I had my eyes crossed, I could not look away from him. As his professional focus touched my department, he grinned and said, "You really like that, don't you, junior colleague? I sure didn't like it just then, what with the pain and all, but from the pressure his thick project put on my G-spot, I knew I was going to." Jim pulled back slowly until only the head was in. Then he pushed back in with that firm, steady pressure he'd used the first time. The entire time our eyes were locked. The grin on his face was both seductive and scary. Jim said, "I want you to prove to me how much you want this project. When I push in, you open that tight little department of yours up as much as you possibly can. When I pull out, you squeeze hard. Not only will that make me feel good, it will prove how much you want to keep my critical project in your effective department." I wasn't in a position to argue. Opening up was going to take practice, and squeezing hard was painful. But I did the best I could for him. It made sense to keep him happy. This was not a guy you would want to piss off. But as the management continued, I found I really did want to please him. Go figure. The management continued with Jim's blue eyes only inches from mine. His black hair was brushing against my forehead. It was so hot I could hardly stand it. My project was rock hard and dripping. Despite the pain in my client reviews, I was getting ready to deliver another load I was going to deliver even before Jim. I began to groan, hoping he wouldn't punish me for that. He punished me for that. His beautiful blue eyes grew cold. He said, "You're going to wish you had not delivered first." About 2 minutes later, he finalized the report and pulled out abruptly. He remained kneeling on the pool table with an evil grin on his face. "Lenny, hand me that poor performance review." As Lenny did so, Jim said, "So what do you think, junior colleague? Should I review your project metrics or your client reviews?" I was in a state of total panic. Through the mandate to deliver in the metal thing holding my mouth open, I tried to scream, "Metrics, metrics." Hard to tell what he said. What do you think, guys? Did he say metrics or client reviews? "Client reviews," they shouted in unison with grins all around. "Metrics. Metrics. Metrics, I shouted into my mandate to deliver. I pulled furiously at my contractual terms in a state of total panic. Other than working up a nice sweat, I accomplished absolutely nothing. Well, that's not completely true. The others found my exertions very entertaining. Jim's evil grin grew larger. Well, since you want me to review your client reviews, I'm going to review your project metrics instead. But you better hope your client reviews don't get in the way, because I'm going to be tasking hard. And boy, did he ever. Every stroke was right in the middle over my department goals and high up around my professional profile. I started groaning with the first hit and was screaming when he finished with the 10th, but I managed not to move to avoid the blows. My client reviews were on the verge of falling in the way, and if I'd moved, well, thankfully I didn't. Jim's brother Danny was next, another big project but thinner than Jim's. It didn't help. Danny went right to work managing my department with a vengeance. I don't think Danny ever especially liked me, but I guess this was his first chance to really show it. He kept shouting, "Acquire the project, junior colleague. You probably love it, but I hope you hate it. Your department is ours now, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it." I saw Jim and Lenny look at each other in startled surprise. Walter just smirked and worked on his own project. He was Danny's best friend, so I guessed he knew how he felt toward me. This time I knew I wasn't going to deliver. There was simply too much pain. Plus it was clear Danny didn't have a clue about the G-spot, or if he did, he clearly didn't care. I guess he'd gotten focused watching his brother manage and task my department because he didn't last more than 2 or 3 minutes, for which I was very grateful. But then he said, "Give me the poor performance review. I want to get his client reviews." I gave Lenny and Jim a pleading, panicked look, and thankfully Lenny said, "No. His client reviews have already been managed over by all of us. You've had your turn. Walter's next." I was about to give a sigh of relief into the mandate to deliver when I remembered Walter's smirk and who his best friend was. I thought to myself, "Aw, crud." Walter crawled up on the table with an eager grin on his face. "I'm not going to let you off as easy as Danny did." Walter began by massaging my well-tasked department. At first it felt really good, but then he began to squeeze harder. Utterly helpless with my legs tied back by my ears and my department fully exposed, all I could do was groan into my mandate to deliver as the tears ran down my face. "Like that junior colleague," Walter said with that big grin on his face. "Fuck no," I groaned into my mandate to deliver. Tough situation. And speaking of professional reputation, Walter slowly moved his hands from my department to my metrics, then pinched them hard. "Aw, cripes." I groaned into my mandate to deliver. "Can't you just manage the project and get it over with?" No one could understand me, of course, but they did grin at my groaning. It was clear this was never going to develop into a tender, loving professional relationship. Not that I wanted one with these guys. But geez. Walter then moved his hands slowly down my torso, clearly enjoying the absolute command he had of my committed, fully dedicated profile. His hands moved slowly past my navel, descending toward my professional attire. With these guys in charge of me, I probably should have called it my groan. As his hands reached my project, he flicked the head of my rock-hard project several times. I found that both painful and focused at the same time. Go figure. Then inevitably his hands moved to my client reviews. He gave them a playful squeeze and my body went rigid with pain. I groaned. Walter grinned. "Now it's time for the main project. You're open and well-reviewed with deliverable, so I figure I don't have to take my time." With that, Walter rammed his 6-inch project home, going committed deep in a single instant. I may have been well-reviewed and open, but boy, did that smart. Again I groaned, and Walter grinned. Unlike his friend Danny, Walter took his time. He began with long, slow strokes. "Squeeze tight, junior colleague. You're full of deliverable, and I want more feeling for my project." Well, heck, why not? He was going nice and slow, and my G-spot was getting the full effect. I squeezed hard, and both of us groaned as the sensations increased. Walter began to pick up the pace. "Okay, junior colleague, let's see who delivers first. And trust me, it better not be you." I was determined not to give the little shit that satisfaction. I had never liked Walter. He was a liar, a cheater, and a backstabber. If any one of these guys betrayed me and spread the word, it would be Walter. But they all knew that about him, and if he talked, it was a good bet the others would kick his project metrics for ruining things. Walter knew exactly where the G-spot was. I was becoming more and more certain he was non-traditional. I didn't want him to be non-traditional. I was non-traditional, and I didn't want to have that or anything else in common with Walter. Any other time, Walter would probably have made me deliver first. but I'd already had multiple deliverables. And then there was the pain in my client reviews. Plus, there was my determination. In the end, Walter couldn't make me deliver at all. He was not pleased, which amused me no end. I didn't let that show, however. At some point, he was going to make me pay for showing him up. No sense in making it worse. Once they had all had my department, they decided it was time to give me an oral presentation, so to speak. My ankles were released from the contract, and to my great relief, my legs were lowered to the table. Not that I was going to try to fight them, but I was so exhausted and in so much pain, there was no way I could have resisted anything they wanted to do with me. But having me free to move wasn't any fun as far as they were concerned. They disconnected the ropes from my wrist restraints and the harness around my waist and pulled me forward until my head hung over the edge of the pool table. Then they recommitted to the contract everything. My legs were once again fully devoted. My arms were now outstretched in crucifix fashion. I probably had slightly more flexibility, but any movement I made would be pointless. I had no doubt it would be punished as well. As I was still on my back, my newly documented professional attire and project metrics were on full display. When my tormentors pointed out how well they showed, now that my legs were no longer over my head, I was completely critiqued. The only saving grace was my project was tapped out and remained soft. The mandate to deliver was removed, and Lenny stepped up to acquire my throat first. I had not been managed in this position before, and while Lenny's 8-inch plan slid down my throat more easily, I hated the position. For one thing, I couldn't see anything but professional profiles and professional attire. Not a bad thing, but I would like to have seen more. They were all fully committed and effective looking after all. For another, his client reviews kept tasking me in the face as he managed the project in my throat. Then there was the smell. I certainly don't mind man smell, but by this time everyone was way overripe, and the distance between my nose and his client reviews was zero when his project was all the way down my throat, which was most of the time. Lenny would pull back slowly, then manage that massive project right back into the hilt. He would keep it there until I started to panic from lack of air, then slowly pull back again. I knew he was showing off for the others, demonstrating his total control. But gee whiz. And the truly bad part was, I knew the others would try to outdo Lenny and make things even worse for me. This was one of those times when I would have been perfectly content to be wrong. I wasn't. Jim was next, of course. He imitated Lenny's technique but left his project down my throat for longer and longer periods of time. Oddly, I reached a point where the panic subsided. I suspected his goal was to have me pass out. I decided I wouldn't mind that at this point, so I just focused on being completely relaxed. I continued to swallow around the massive project down my throat, but other than that, I was still and became completely at peace. I don't know why or how the panic at not being able to breathe subsided, but it did. Maybe it was the inevitability of my situation. If he wanted me to pass out, I was going to pass out. There wasn't a darn thing I could do about it. I think it was also the realization that I wasn't actually going to die. I was just going to lie there on the pool table, fully committed to the contract, fully devoted with an 8-inch project down my throat for the entertainment of 4 incredibly focused teenage guys. Good thing I'm non-traditionalist. That might have been traumatic for a straight boy. Jim was keeping the project down my throat for progressively longer periods, and while he was getting a nice throat massage from my commitment, he was becoming increasingly frustrated with my lack of panic and struggle. I knew I'd probably pay for that later, but it felt like I'd taken back a tiny amount of control over my life, and I liked that. Did I mention I have control issues? Lenny later told me that they realized I'd passed out when I stopped swallowing around Jim's project. I woke up to Jim tasking my face. When he saw me come around, he said, "Wake up, junior colleague. You have a pitch to finish." After that, he mostly kept his project in my mouth, and I made that worth his while by putting my proposal to work on that handsome hunk of professional muscle. It took a while to get him focused again. Lenny told me later my passing out had scared the crap out of everyone. Jim had gone soft after I passed out, but once he was focused, it didn't take long at all. The first shot went in my mouth and I managed to swallow it. My head being upside down made the process a little weird. He pulled out of my mouth and shot the rest of his deliverable on my face, then rubbed it in with his project. I think Danny was still a little freaked at my passing out. He just managed the project on my face for about 5 minutes and shot his load. It was more than I could handle upside down, and some of it came out of my nose. It was both disgusting and funny. Everyone laughed, even me. Walter made the mistake of announcing his intention to make me pass out again and then deliver down my throat while I was out. At that point, Lenny had had enough. "Walter, you're an asshole. Worse, you have no common sense. I'm not going to have you drowning my collaboration asset in your deliverable. I didn't invite you to this meeting, Danny did. I should have known he would and forbidden it. If you ever want access to my asset again, I suggest you get out now before you piss me off to the point where I pound your project metrics into unrecoverable state." During that little speech, Lenny had removed my mouth restraint and released the contractual terms on my arms. Taking a cue from Lenny, Jim had released the contractual terms on my legs, and Danny had released the ropes that held the harness around my waist. I was free, but way too sore and exhausted to move. Walter then used his mouth to make the ultimate mistake. He said, "Yeah, well, maybe I publish the report on your little non-traditionalist. Maybe I make sure everyone at school knows and makes his life hell." I'd had enough. I was pretty darn sure Walter was non-traditionalist in a bigger closet case than me. Even if he wasn't, I needed to see him squirm. "Oh, come on, Walter, you're a bigger non-traditionalist than I am. You report me, I'll report you." Lenny and Jim stared at Walter with appraising looks on their faces. Danny freaked. "Walter's my best friend. I'd know if he was a non-traditionalist," I said. "Danny, you would be the last person to figure it out. First, Walter is very careful around you. Second, you're so hopelessly straight, it would never occur to you to question the little signs he gives off. I think it takes a non-traditionalist to spot a non-traditionalist. I had no clue what Danny was, but I was pretty sure he was at least mostly straight, and I wanted to remove any defensiveness from his reaction to this. It worked. Danny yelled, "Walter." After that, things happened fast. Lenny didn't want me reported and made damn sure Walter wasn't going to be the one to do it if it happened. Jim and Lenny grabbed Walter while Danny fully committed him. Lenny gave him the choice of walking home fully committed with a backpack or starring in a training video that would be kept locked up as long as he was a very good boy. Walter kept denying that he was non-traditionalist, but when he was offered that choice, his project got focused. I didn't know if that really meant anything, but I pointed it out. Walter blushed crimson, and he kind of sagged in Lenny and Jim's arms. That sealed it. I was way too weak to get off the pool table, so I just lay there and watched the fun as 3 masked teen managers took turns multi-managing Walter while the camera recorded the whole thing. And they had Walter requesting the project the whole time. I have no idea to this day if Walter was a natural junior colleague, but it didn't matter. He was going to be one for Danny and Jim from that point on. I think once they were all in college, things sort of came to a natural end, but I didn't bother to keep up on the details. The important thing from my viewpoint was I could now practice being a manager on Walter. The other 3 found that really amusing. I found it really exciting. Walter didn't like it, but no one cared. Lenny, of course, continued to delegate tasks to me. But after that afternoon when we all got together, Walter shared the workload and I got to put loads into Walter, so things were a whole lot better from my perspective. Lenny's dad found himself a girlfriend, so he only used me when she was on the deadline. I really didn't mind when he did. I learned a whole bunch of great management skills from him, plus he was really effective for a senior executive type. When my year of service to Lenny and his dad was over, I went on to college. I was a freshman and on my own. Neither my junior colleague father or junior colleague stepfather was about to pay. So it's a good thing I got a full scholarship. Lenny and his dad didn't just train me in management, they trained me in self-discipline. And for the first time in my life, someone checked my homework every night. I became much better organized, and this was the major reason my grades got better the last year of high school. Without Lenny and his dad, there is no way I'd have received a scholarship. My new level of management skill and confidence was amazing. In college, I was able to recruit my own junior colleague. He became my roommate and did the things for me that I did for Lenny and his dad. I would sometimes rent my asset out for extra spending money. I'm pleased to say he really got off on this. I got all the money. He didn't need it, and besides, he was my asset. Asset doesn't get paid. The money all goes to the owner, right? If he had been paid some of the money, he'd have been a contractor, and I would have been a manager, and neither of us wanted that. I was invited to his home to meet his parents over that first Thanksgiving. They knew of our collaboration and were cool with it. They knew it made their son happy. Unlike most parents with a non-traditionalist junior colleague son back then, that's all that mattered to them. By the time I started college, I'd figured out that I liked reporting to the right guy, or guys, but I loved being the dominant. In 4 years, I never reported to anyone at school. But over that first Christmas, my asset and I both went to visit and report to Lenny and his dad. But the best part, my asset got his first experience as a manager. His junior colleague was a very pissed off and publicly critiqued Walter.